Chapter 354. Everyone gasped in surprise. The 6 ninth ring sages couldn't fight back at all. They didn't even have time to release their seals before they were beaten to a pulp. Jean Depang was excited. He walked over to Tang He and said with a smile, "Fatty, ayaya, are you crying?" Tang He spat. "You're the one who's crying." Jean Depang stomped his foot on Tang He's hand. Tang He let out a blood-curdling scream. He didn't dare to resist at all. The mannequin was glaring at him like a tiger watching its prey. Once he made a move, he could foresee that he would be beaten up violently. Lei Xingfeng laughed. "Tang He, right? Haha, I didn't even make a move, and you're all lying on the ground. Right? Who was it that said that he would beat the shit out of me?" Tang He began to tremble. Jean Depang rolled up his sleeves. I'll do it. I'll beat the shit out of him." Jean Depang slapped the back of Jean Depang's head. "Move aside. I'll do it." Jean Depang shriveled up and retreated to Lei Xingfeng's side, muttering, "What a great opportunity. I haven't hit anyone in a long time. Really, this is robbing. Boring." Tang He, on the other hand, said, "Don't hit us. We admit defeat." Lei Xingfeng smiled. "Admit defeat? It's not that you can't, but you can't admit defeat like this." Wu Gang huffed. "What do you want?" Lei Xingfeng rubbed his chin. "Pay rings. The cause is rings. 100 each. I've always been fair." This was an exorbitant price. 100 rings was a huge sum for a ninth ring sage. Many ninth ring sages didn't even have that many rings. After all, rings were consumables. Tang He immediately shouted, You, why don't you just rob us?" Lei Xingfeng grinned. "I'm robbing you." Tang He froze, then couldn't help but shout, I don't have that many rings." The black bird suddenly said, "Bird has a way." Suddenly, everyone was stunned. Birds have a way. Everyone's heart was filled with questions. Do birds have a solution? What kind of F***king solution was that? Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but smile and said, "Okay, Bude, what method do you have?" The blackbird said proudly, "Strip them naked and hang them up. Whenever we can get the rings, we'll release them." How about that? Bird's method is not bad, right? Tang He and the others all collapsed. Cultivators cared a lot about their reputation. If they were stripped naked and hung up, they wouldn't be able to live anymore. How could this bird be so vicious? Jean Depang wiped his sweat and said, "I'm not as good as a bird. Because practitioners have a hidden Luin space, it's impossible to take it by force. Even if you kill him, you won't be able to take anything unless he takes the initiative to hand it over." Tang He shouted, "You can't insult people like this. Our sect's elders will settle the score with you." Lei Xingfeng giggled and said, "Your sect's elders will come looking for me. That's a matter for the future. As for now, you're in trouble." Tang He and the others were really scared. If they were stripped naked and hung up, it would be too miserable. He would rather be beaten half to death than be humiliated like this. So he collapsed and shouted, I'll pay. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "They really are candles. They can't light up without being lit." The blackbird was extremely proud. It cawed a few times, then tilted its head to watch the show. 6 people, 100 rings each. Tang He and the others obediently took it out. Even if some of them couldn't take out that much, they could pool it together. Lei Xingfeng gave Jean Depang, and Tiger Love 100 rings each. He took 300 rings himself. Only the blackbird didn't get anything. The blackbird kept yelling that it wasn't fair, but Lei Xingfeng shut him up with one sentence. The blackbird didn't have a hidden Luin space, and 100 rings wasn't small. The blackbird was helpless about not having a place to put them. Even if he wanted them, and Lei Xingfeng gave them to him, he couldn't take them away. He was so angry that he used his beak to bite Lei Xingfeng's ear. With Lei Xingfeng's current physical fitness, he wouldn't feel any discomfort no matter what he did. Lei Xingfeng was happy to receive a large sum of money. The happiest of all was Jean Depang. This guy didn't even have 100 rings on him. He thought to himself, no wonder they were all willing to go with a phone. They'll get rich. After paying the rings, Lei Xingfeng released the 6 people. He put away the mannequin and said, "Keep your word. Since you've paid the rings, we're even. Of course, if you mess with me again, It won't be so easy to resolve. He threatened, then led the group to an empty wooden shed and sat down to rest. Tang He and the others looked at each other, then immediately flew away. Jean Depang said, "A phone, they ran away." Lei Xingfeng said, "Yeah, I saw them. Let them run away." The wooden island was actually very small, about 100 meters long and 80 meters wide. It was an irregular island. The wooden shed took up a very small area, about 10 square meters. Lei Xingfeng and the others sat down. Jean Dia said, "I'll go ask around." Lei Xingfeng smiled. "They're probably new here. There shouldn't be anything special." Jean Dia nodded. "I know. Maybe there's something we don't know. I'll be back soon." As he spoke, he walked outside. Lei Xingfeng didn't stop him. He also hoped that Jean Dia could get some information about this place. Due to the outstanding performance of Lei Xingfeng's mannequin, the enlightened masters here were very wary of the four of them. No one dared to mess with them, so Jean Dia's questioning went smoothly. As long as he found someone, they would tell him everything they knew. After a short while, Jean Dia returned to Lei Xingfeng's wooden shed. He smiled. "There's still some news." Jean Depang eagerly carried a chair and said, "I brought a chair. Sit down and take a rest." A table and 4 chairs were all prepared by Jean Depang and stored in his hidden Lun space. There was nothing in the wooden shed, so they had to bring their own tables and chairs. In fact, Lei Xingfeng's hidden Lun space also had tables and chairs and other daily necessities. There were even many wooden beds. Jean Dia and Tiger Love did the same. This was a habit of cultivators. Not only did Jean Depang bring out tables and chairs, but he also brought out all kinds of preserved fruits and snacks. One had to know that Jean Depang's mouth would never stop. Even after eating, he wouldn't stop eating snacks. Everyone was eating snacks while chatting. Lei Xingfeng asked, "What's the situation?" Jean Dia reached out and picked up a preserved fruit. He put it in his mouth and praised. "It tastes good," he continued. "Most of the people who came in this time are the guards and retainers of the various sections. The direct descendants rarely come in. There are a few types of ferocious beasts here. They're very strong, but they're not much of a threat to a 9th ring sage because they can't fly. And they won't attack unless you provoke them." Lei Xingfeng smiled. "This is a little different from the news before we came in." Jean Dia said, "That's for sure. After all, there were a lot of rumors before. As for what specialties there are, there's no valuable news yet. We'll have to search for them ourselves." Lei Xingfeng said, "That's normal. I just don't know what will be produced here." Jean Dia shook his head. "It's really inconvenient to bring Jean Depang along." Lei Xingfeng smiled. "It's fine. Just bring him along. I have a human puppet to protect me, so I'm not afraid of any accidents." Jean Depang's face reddened. He knew he was a burden, but his strong curiosity and desire to collect ingredients made him want to level up quickly for the first time. It would be best if he could reach the 6th ring sage body so he wouldn't be a burden to others. He'd gotten 100 rings this time, so he could at least advance by 1 or 2 levels. Jean Dia said, "Jean Depang, work hard to level up in the future. Don't just eat and drink all day." Jean Depang nodded helplessly. He had no choice. Jean Dia was his senior, so he couldn't refuse. As for eating, he would never give up. If he couldn't eat, then life would be meaningless. Tiger Love smiled. "Yeah, everyone else cultivates like crazy because they don't have enough rings. You have enough, but you don't work hard at all." Jean Depang hurriedly raised his hand. I'll work hard. Seeing that everyone wanted to teach him a lesson, he quickly expressed his stance. But in his heart, he grumbled, "When it's time to eat, you guys are faster than anyone else. After you finish eating, you wipe your mouths, and then you come to bully me. Sigh, what bad luck." The blackbird chimed in as well. That's right. Caw, fatty. If you keep eating like this, you'll get fatter and fatter. If a bird was like you, it'd be a fat bird. It wouldn't even be able to fly. Caw, caw. Jean Depang glared angrily. Since when did a bird start lecturing him? But he really didn't dare to argue with the blackbird. After suffering so many losses, he wisely kept his mouth shut. Lei Xingfeng asked, "Uncle Jean, is this a swamp? Is there no place that isn't a swamp?" Jean Dia said, "We don't know yet. As far as the scouting area is concerned, no one has found any land. It's all shallow water. The shallow water here is a swamp, and it's the kind that's easy to sink into. Lei Xingfeng shook his head. That's not right. Maybe the avocado swamp is huge, but it's impossible for the entire outer world to be a swamp. That doesn't make sense. We can scout it out. You know, if it's a swamp, even if there are any treasures or minerals, it'd be difficult to excavate them. If that's the case, then the avocado swamp has no value. Jean Daya agreed. I think so too, but we'll have to try before we know. As they chatted and laughed, the sky gradually darkened. Then, they saw an endless number of black mosquitoes rise from the swamp. Each one was the size of a finger, and they swarmed towards them. Lei Xingfeng was shocked. Holy shit, what a vicious bug. In an instant, everyone's hair stood on end. Someone shouted, "It's fine. As long as we spread out our Enli, those bugs won't be able to fly in." Lei Xingfeng and the others spread out their Enli. In an instant, countless mosquitoes were blocked outside. Lei Xingfeng frowned. Let's take turns. One person's Enli is enough. Chapter 355. Jean Daya said, I'll go first. The Enli spread out and formed space. Although the mosquitoes looked disgusting, they were helpless against the Enli of a ninth ring sage. They could only fly around the wooden shed. The mosquitoes harassed them for a night. Although they couldn't bite anyone, the buzzing was annoying. The next morning, the mosquitoes disappeared from the surface of the swamp. Lei Xingfeng said, "These things are really annoying. I can't even cultivate peacefully." Jean Daya said, "Yes, this place is really annoying. This is probably the first time I've come here. If there are no special circumstances, I won't come here again." Tiger Love said, "Yeah, why are there so many of them? If a normal person came here, they'd probably suck all their blood and turn into a skeleton." Xi and Feng thought about the night before. The strength of these little bugs was actually quite strong, but they were unable to break through due to the Enli. Low-level practitioners, if they relied on Lunli, they probably wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Even if they condensed a Lunli armor, they wouldn't be able to hold on for long. They would die very quickly. Jean Depang said, "This place, Sai." He couldn't say anything because he couldn't collect them. With his size, once he fell into the water, he would definitely sink to the bottom. Lei Xingfeng smiled. "Okay, let's go." Jean Daya carried Jean Depang on his back. Tiger Love suddenly said, "Wait, someone's coming. It seems to be the group from yesterday." Xi and Feng raised his head and saw that it was indeed the 6/9 ringed true masters who ran away yesterday. But behind them was an old man. They quickly landed and heard Tang He's strange cry. "Aha! You're still here. Ha ha ha!" Blackbird suddenly said, "This person is sick." Lei Xingfeng was amused by Blackbird. He said, "He's probably sick and very sick." Blackbird said, "It's time to take your medicine." Tang's laughter was stuck in his throat. He coughed a few times to catch his breath. He stared at Lei Xingfeng and said, "Kid, don't be too proud. I won't let you go easily this time." Wu Gang said, "Uncle, please." Jean Daya suddenly became nervous and said, "Oh no, they've invited their elders." Tiger Love grew nervous as well. The seniors here were all monarchs at the very least. They didn't expect the other party to be such a sore loser that he'd asked his seniors to come and suppress him after losing 600 rings. Lei Xingfeng sneered. "It's fine. He won't dare to make a move. We are not wandering cultivators. What's there to be afraid of?" Normally, true monarchs wouldn't appear in the outer world, and even if they did, they wouldn't casually attack. Any enlightened master who could come here definitely had a true monarch behind him. Without the support of a true monarch, it was impossible to enter the outer world. This was something that everyone knew. Tang He arrogantly walked in front of Lei Xingfeng and said, "Kid, hand over your rings, and everyone else will pay 200 rings as compensation." Lei Xingfeng dug his ears and said, "Where did the insects come from?" Blackbird couldn't help but caw a few times. This was probably his laughter. Tang's face immediately turned green. He said, "Kid, come and meet my family senior." Lei Xingfeng didn't care. He said, "He's your senior, not mine. Why would I want to meet him? How strange. You really are sick, Blackbird said, and seriously sick. Caw. Tang was so angry that his nose and mouth were crooked. He pointed at Lei Xingfeng and said, You bastard, do you want to die? The elder stepped forward and said, Little River, back down. Tang bowed and angrily retreated to the side. Wu Gang stepped forward and said, This is my family's senior, Master Hua Cheng, Lord True Monarch. Kid, why aren't you greeting him? Lei Xingfeng rolled his eyes and said, Damn beaut, I'm curious. I don't know him, but he keeps asking me to greet some senior. There are so many people here, but he just won't let us go. What do you think we should do? Blackbird's answer was straightforward. Let's go. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, That's true. Okay, let's go. He completely ignored this group of people. It was the first time Hua Cheng had seen such a crazy little guy. He had heard that the other party had strange weapons, a body like a human, and a beast's head. He fought like a human and was very powerful. Unfortunately, although he was a true monarch, he didn't know that it was a puppet beast from the Forbidden Land. Because he had never been to the Outer Realm, he didn't know about the products of the Outer Realm, nor did he know about the Great Forbidden Land. Of course, he didn't know how powerful the puppet beast was. Stop! A berserk aura suppressed them, instantly causing Xian Feng and the rest to retreat. Lei Xingfeng said coldly, What are you going to do? Do you want to fight? With a wave of his hand, 6 silver puppet beasts appeared. He didn't dare to be careless. With 6 silver puppet beasts, he should be able to deal with a true monarch. Back then, Martial Uncle Lotzi couldn't block the attacks of a few silver puppet beasts, and those silver puppet beasts didn't have enough energy. When Tang He and the other true monarchs saw the 6 silver puppet beasts, their faces were filled with fear. They had suffered a lot just now. There were quite a few true monarchs on the artificial wooden island. Seeing that another conflict was about to break out, they all craned their necks to watch. Some of them had seen the power of the puppet beasts yesterday and didn't expect the other party to call their elders. They really despised these 6 people for having no self-respect at all. Hua Cheng was furious. After all, he was a true monarch. Fighting a few 9th ring true monarchs was really beneath his dignity. Plus, the other party wasn't necessarily easy to deal with. They all came from secret sections. If the other party called their elders, then things would get interesting. There were differences between true monarchs, and the differences were huge. For example, Gucci was a peak true monarch, one step away from becoming a heavenly monarch. Feng Qinzong had just become a true monarch. His strength was much weaker than Gucci's. Even 2 Feng Qinzongs might not be able to defeat one Gucci. This was the difference between true monarchs. Hua Cheng sneered. You want to stop me with just these few things? You must be dreaming. Lei Xingfeng's face was cold. I don't know if I'm dreaming or not, but you're an elder. Not only do you not control your own disciples, you even shamelessly came out. Don't you know the disciples should solve their own problems? If you want to do it yourself, why don't you try? Who the hell is afraid of you? The blackbird opened its mouth and scolded. Caw, you old bastard. Caw, shameless thing. Hua Cheng's face was completely black. Even a bird was scolding him. If he could tolerate this, what else could he do? He said darkly, You want to die? Good, very good. Ha, kid, I'll let you know what King regret is. Lei Xingfeng knew that he couldn't be kind anymore. Originally, he could have just given him a bunch of yin rings. Even if he was a true monarch, it wouldn't have mattered. But now, he had offended the other party. After all, the other party was a true monarch. He had the dignity of a true monarch. Of course, he couldn't let this go. Hua Cheng said again, Little River, bring your people to patrol the side. As long as the other party doesn't run, you don't have to do anything. I haven't done anything in a long time. My hands are really itching. You? Yes, the 4 of you. Come at me together. I don't bully the younger generation. I'll let you guys do it first. Lei Xingfeng quickly released a gold-level puppet beast. Because he felt uneasy, he decided to use his trump card. The puppet beast had a special characteristic. Before it attacked, it didn't feel the slightest bit of threat. But once it attacked, it was as fast as lightning. If someone who didn't understand it suddenly encountered this thing, it would be hard for them not to be at a disadvantage. Lei Xingfeng sneered. Very good. A true monarch can make 4 sages attack him without shame. Very good. Uncle Kim, Uncle Tiger, Fatty, back off. I don't believe that he can do anything. Hua Cheng was amused. You want to fight me? Little guy, don't be too greedy. Hee. Lei Xingfeng said. You think you got me? Dream on. Hua Cheng said impatiently. I'll let you do it first. Don't drag it out. If I do, you won't have a chance. Lei Xingfeng said. You're shameless. Blackbird said. Shameless. 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 Ga. Hua Cheng shouted. You're courting death. He moved and was about to attack. Lei Xingfeng shouted, fight. Don't hold back. He was very clear about the strength of a true monarch. He was definitely no match for him. Even if he was a thunder attribute true monarch and could challenge people above his level, the difference between a true monarch and a true monarch was too great. This kind of challenge would not succeed. He relied on the power of the puppet beast. A golden light flashed in front of Hua Cheng's eyes. It was so fast that he didn't even have time to react. He only had time to raise his hand and use his strength to protect his body. Although Lei Xingfeng gave the order, the 6 silver puppet beasts didn't move. Only the gold puppet beast attacked fiercely. This was caused by the difference in level. If the gold puppet beast was here, the silver puppet beast wouldn't have to attack. This was something that Lei Xingfeng didn't know. The gold-grade puppet beast released its force field and instantly enveloped Hua Cheng. It was known that gold-grade puppets were able to exchange blows with heaven monarchs, especially gold-grade puppets that were filled with energy. They were even more ferocious, and their attack speed was absolutely terrifying to the extreme. The puppet beast mostly used physical attacks and rarely used energy attacks. Of course, the gold puppet beast had energy attacks, but it usually wouldn't use them. It mainly depended on the enemy's distance. If the enemy was within 100 meters, then the attack range would be absolute. The power of its fists and feet would be maximized. In an instant, Hua Cheng felt like he was in a storm. This kind of attack was something he had never seen or even imagined. It was too fast and too heavy. He was completely stunned. The result of his subconscious defense was that he was knocked to the ground by the violent attack. Since Lei Xingfeng gave the order to not hold back, this meant that the gold puppet beast could attack with all its might. Hua Cheng was like a blade of grass in a storm. He was beaten until he couldn't speak. He could only let out meaningless whimpers. Lei Xingfeng reached out and touched his face. He realized that there was blood on his hand. It wasn't because he was injured, but because Hua Cheng's blood had splashed on his face. Only then did he realize that his order was a bit too harsh. According to the current attack style, Hua Cheng could really kill a true monarch. Tang He started to tremble. Wu Gang and the other 9th ring sages were frightened. They had never seen a true monarch being beaten up. Was this still their martial uncle? This person who was whimpering from the beating was almost beaten into a pig's head. There was a circle of blood on the ground, and there was a crackling sound. The attack speed of the gold-level puppet beast was terrifying even to the Lord of the Meridian Sun. That was when the gold-level puppet beast did not have enough energy. Now it was full of energy. The most frightening thing was that the gold-level puppet beast was commanded by someone. Its strength was greatly increased. Chapter 356. Therefore, Hua Cheng's fate was tragic. Lei Xingfeng hurriedly said, "Don't kill him." They really couldn't kill him. Beating him up wouldn't be a big deal, but killing him would cause a war between the two sections. Most importantly, Lei Xingfeng's house was empty. Neither Guqi nor Wu Yang were at home. Once the sects fought, it would be a big deal. The gold-grade puppet beast roared. It was obviously dissatisfied with Lei Xingfeng's order. However, began to slow down, giving Hua Cheng a chance to catch his breath. After all, it was a monarch and had many tricks up its sleeves. Even so, the gold-grade puppet beast was still suppressing him. For the first time, Lei Xingfeng felt the strength of the puppet beast. Although it had slowed down, every attack landed on a critical point, making it impossible for Hua Cheng to attack. Hua Cheng was so frustrated that he wanted to die. The gold-grade puppet beast attacks were all perverted. They were all critical points. He had to dodge and block them. or he would be seriously injured. It aimed a kick at Hua Cheng's crotch. Hua Cheng leaned to the side, but the leg had already been retracted. The puppet beast flashed and threw a punch. Hua Cheng raised his hands in front of his neck, but it was as if he was stuck in glue. No matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't get away. With a loud bang, his body couldn't help but retreat. The puppet beast had already flashed to the other side of his body and launched another attack. Hua Cheng let out a crazy roar. He was too frustrated. He couldn't block or dodge. He was beaten until tears and snot flowed down his face. He wasn't crying, but because his nose was punched so hard that he couldn't control his tears and snot. Blackbird even said sarcastically, "Caw, the old man is crying, caw." Jean Dia, Tiger Love, and Jean Depang were all dumbfounded. They had never seen a monarch being beaten to tears. The three of them were stunned. There was a group of cultivators on the side. They were all dumbfounded. This was a monarch, but he was beaten so badly. It was unbelievable. The others were fine, but Tang He and the others were scared out of their wits. Even their martial uncle was beaten to tears. What were they going to do? Even if Lei Xingfeng didn't find trouble with them, wouldn't they be beaten to a pulp by martial uncle when they got home? They were the ones who had tricked him. Boom! The gold mannequin beast's fist landed on Hua Cheng's head, causing him to see stars. Hua Cheng fell to the ground and stomped his foot on the ground. Hua Cheng barely managed to turn his body to the side, and the gold mannequin beast's foot landed on the wooden plank. At this moment, the gold mannequin beast's control was evident. The moment the gold mannequin beast's foot landed on the wooden plank, the force behind it disappeared. Otherwise, the wooden plank would not have been able to withstand such force. This knee strike hit Hua Cheng's shoulder, and Hua Cheng was sent flying. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Hua Cheng was seriously injured. Hua Cheng took advantage of the opportunity to roll on the ground and roared, "You're all dead. Stop him." Tang He and the others were stunned. This was called for reinforcements. They didn't dare to disobey and rushed forward with a roar. A golden light flashed, followed by 6 consecutive explosions. Tang He and the others were sent flying, but this gave Hua Cheng a chance to catch his breath. Hua Cheng finally released his seal. He was of the earth attribute. An earth seal flew out, and a yellow light instantly protected his body. Spitting out another mouthful of blood, Hua Cheng's face turned pale. It was a pity that he couldn't even attack. He was seriously injured. Even if he released the earth seal, it could only protect his body. Even if he wanted to escape, it would be difficult. He was surrounded by the gold mannequin beast's force field. Unless he escaped from this force field, he would not be able to escape. However, the gold mannequin beast was like a maggot to his bones. If it wasn't for Lei Xingfeng's order not to kill, Hua Cheng might have been killed. This was the result of Hua Cheng's carelessness. If he knew how strong the gold mannequin beast was, he wouldn't have fought like this from the beginning. He used his weakness to attack the gold mannequin beast's strength. Hua Cheng knew that he was doomed. Seeing that the mannequin beast's violent attacks were about to break through the earth seal's defense, he shouted, "Stop! Stop! Stop fighting!" Without Lei Xingfeng's order, the mannequin beast would definitely not stop. It continued to attack wildly. Hua Cheng helplessly roared, "I admit defeat. I admit defeat. King, stop." Lei Xingfeng chuckled and said, "Come back." The gold mannequin beast's body flashed and returned to Lei Xingfeng's side. Although Tang He and the others were sent flying by the gold mannequin beast, they didn't suffer much damage. They scrambled to Hua Cheng's side and helped him up in a flurry. Hua Cheng coughed repeatedly. He took out a bottle of medicine and poured it into his mouth. He clutched his chest and exhaled after a while. He stared at Lei Xingfeng and then at the gold mannequin beast. Everyone could see the fear in his eyes. "You win. What is he? How is he so strong?" Hua Cheng was very unwilling to admit defeat. However, he knew that there was no point in continuing the fight. His opponent had such a terrifying weapon. There was no way he could win. He didn't hesitate and chose to admit defeat. Lei Xingfeng said, "This is a mannequin beast." As he spoke, he put away the 6 silver mannequins, leaving only the gold mannequin beast to guard him. This was to prevent Hua Cheng from flying into a rage out of humiliation and injuring others. At the same time, it was to intimidate Hua Cheng. Hua Cheng was stunned and said, "Mannequin beast." He thought for a moment and suddenly remembered. He exclaimed, "Extraterrestrial? Mannequin beast. I got it." Although he had never been to the extraterrestrial, he had heard of it. Because he had never been there, he did not care much about it. This was why he suffered so much. Lei Xingfeng said, "What do you plan to do?" Hua Cheng played dumb and said, "What do you mean?" The black bird could not help but scold. "Playing dumb. You don't look like you're admitting defeat at all." "Ga." Hua Cheng's pale face immediately turned red. He stammered, What do you want?" Tang He and the others were also stunned. This was the rhythm of extortion. This was too scary. A ninth ring sage wanted to extort a monarch? Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "Bird Butte, what do you think we should do?" The black bird immediately became proud. He said, "Ga, Waiaya." Bird says, "Compensation." Ga. Hua Cheng was so angry that his face turned red. Was there anything more infuriating than this? However, looking at the gold mannequin beast, he felt a chill run down his spine. He gritted his teeth and said, "How do you want compensation? Tell me." He completely admitted defeat. The black bird crowed proudly, then said, "Meet, Jay. Why did you hit me, Jay?" "I know," Bird says. "Rings." The black bird, who was beside himself with joy, was patted by Lei Xingfeng. Only then did he become a little more serious. Hua Cheng said, "How much?" The black bird said, "Bird says 6J 1,000. He was going to say 600, but he suddenly remembered that this was a monarch. How could it be so little? Hua Cheng frowned. This number was a bit high, but as a monarch, he could afford to pay rings. He did not want to stay here and be humiliated. He raised his hand and threw out a bag, saying, "Okay." Jean Depeng laughed and walked forward. He picked up the bag and checked it. He nodded at Lei Xingfeng and said, "It's correct." Lei Xingfeng said, "All right, I'll let it go this time. Teach your disciples well in the future." He was too lazy to continue. It was good enough to get a large amount of rings. In fact, he didn't earn much. After all, the gold mannequin beast consumed energy. In the battle just now, he had used up at least a few hundred rings. Hua Cheng also didn't have the face to stay. He left with Tang He and the others. Seeing Hua Cheng and the others leave, Jean Dias said, "Those disciples are going to be in trouble when they go back. They'll probably be beaten up, or worse." The blackbird said proudly, "Luckily I'm smart. 1,000 rings." Lei Xingfeng said, "Ignorant." He had originally hoped that the blackbird would ask for an exorbitant price. Who knew that the blackbird's appetite was so small, only asking for 1,000 rings? If he had asked for 10,000, the other party would definitely not have agreed. But after some bargaining, the price was much higher than 1,000 rings. He regretted letting the blackbird ask for a price. The blackbird didn't understand. "What do you mean?" Jean Dias said, "A phone means that your price is too low." Tiger Love said, "Yeah, the other party is a monarch. You can ask for a bit more." The blackbird was stunned. He said, Then how much should I ask for? 1,000 rings is a lot. Should I ask for 2,000 rings?" He thought that doubling the price would be good enough. But then Lei Xingfeng said, "Ignorant." Jean Depeng couldn't help but laugh. He said, "You should ask for 10,000 rings." The blackbird was shocked. "Wow, black. You're blacker than the blackbird. Gah, scary." This number shocked the blackbird. Lei Xingfeng nodded. That's the only way to bargain with the other party. If you ask for a price, you'll be able to sell the fruits of victory very cheaply. The blackbird said dejectedly, "Gah, I was wrong." Lei Xingfeng said lightly, "I'm not blaming you. You're just inexperienced. There's nothing to be proud of." The blackbird was touched. He combed Lei Xingfeng's hair with his beak. "Gah, next time I'll ask for 100,000. Waha." Everyone was speechless. This wasn't asking for a price. This was nonsense. Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's go. If it's a monarch this time, we'll be in for a lot of fun." There was only Feng Qinzong at home. Even if Feng Qinzong came, he might not be able to beat Hua Cheng. After all, he'd just become a monarch. There should be a gap in strength. Lei Xingfeng was secretly glad that he had the puppet beast. Otherwise, he'd really be bullied. Jean Dia carried Jean Depang, Lei Xingfeng, and Tiger Love into the air. Jean Dia said, "Where are we going?" Lei Xingfeng said, "We're going the opposite direction." In fact, he was still afraid of Hua Cheng's group and wanted to avoid them. The three of them flew in the opposite direction. After flying for 4 days straight, they still couldn't find a place to rest. Even though the three of them were ninth ring sages, they were still exhausted. The journey had been difficult, especially at night, when flying was extremely taxing. Jean Dia said, "A phone, we can't go on. If we can't find a place to stay, we'll have to go back." Tiger Love said, "Is there a big tree in front?" Lei Xingfeng looked into the distance. He could vaguely see the crown of a tree. It was quite big and could be seen from far away. It was very conspicuous. Jean Dia immediately changed direction and flew toward the big tree. He couldn't bear it anymore. Carrying a fat and heavy guy like Jean Depang was really exhausting. After a short while, the four of them finally saw a gigantic tree. This tree was very similar to the banyan tree in Xinfeng's previous world. A single tree could take up a few hectares of land. This tree was even more gigantic, with countless roots hanging down from it. The ground was filled with intertwining thick roots. The ground was still a swamp, but this tree relied on its developed roots to float on the ground. The four of them landed on the tree. Jean Dia put down Jean Depang and couldn't help but cry. For days, Lei Xingfeng and Tiger Love shouted at almost the same time, "Be careful." Chapter 357. A giant snake opened its mouth and bit at Jean Depang. Its body was as thick as a bucket, and its body was hidden in the roots of the tree. It was impossible to tell how long it was, and its color was almost the same as the roots of the tree. It was impossible to tell at a glance. Jean Dia grabbed Jean Depang and threw him out with all his might. His body flipped, and he kicked the giant snake in the jaw. With a loud bang, the giant snake's head flew backward and crashed into a hanging tree root. Jean Depang was dancing in the air, but Lei Xingfeng had already flown over. He reached out and hooked Jean Depang's thigh, drawing an arc in the air with him. In an instant, they were on the top of a tree. Jean Depang was upside down, and while he was screaming, Lei Xingfeng placed him on a branch. Below, Jean Dia was already fighting with the giant snake. At this time, Lei Xingfeng also realized that this snake was not ordinary. No matter how Jean Dia hit it, he could not kill it. The continuous attacks made the snake hiss nonstop. It was trying its best to get closer to Jean Dia. Lei Xingfeng reminded, "Uncle Jean, it wants to entangle you." Jean Dia said, "I know. This thing is strange. I can't hit it." Lei Xingfeng said, "Burn it." Jean Dia said, "I'm just afraid of burning this tree. It wasn't easy to find a good place to rest. I don't want to destroy it." Lei Xingfeng raised his hand and shot out a thunderbolt. The thick electric light wrapped around the giant snake, and it immediately shook violently. Blackbird could not help but sigh, "Oh wow, what a waste. TSK, what a pity." Jean Dia pulled out a long saber and slashed it across the giant snake's neck with all his strength. In an instant, the long saber cut through the snake's neck, and a large amount of blood spurted out. Jean Dia could not help but exclaim, "What tough skin." He originally thought that he could cut through the snake's neck, but who knew that he could only cut through the snake's skin? Lei Xingfeng shot out another thunderbolt. With a crackling sound, the lightning made the giant snake tremble violently again. Because of the lightning, the giant snake was completely frozen. Lei Xingfeng shouted, "Uncle Jean, continue." Jean Dia madly brandished his long saber, slashing it from front to back. It took him 5 slashes to cut off the giant snake's head. When he stopped, he couldn't believe that he had to slash the same spot 6 times to cut off the snake's neck. It was too tough. Shirhu grabbed the snake's decapitated neck and forcefully pulled it out. When Shirhu flew up, the length of a snake was revealed. It was more than 20 meters long. Jean Depang's eyes lit up. "This thing must be delicious," he said. "Give it to me. Give it to me." Lei Xingfeng said, "Give it to Fatty. Let's go back and deal with it." Jean Dia nimbly flipped down from the tree branch. As long as his feet touched the ground, he would not be clumsy. He quickly fell down, and with a crackling sound, he smashed through many branches. With a boom, he smashed into a thick root. The root was as thick as a water tank. Due to the protection of Lewin Ainley, he was not injured. He jumped up and ran toward the snake. Putting away the giant snake's body, Jean Dia found the snake's head. This snake's head was as thick as a human arm. According to Jean Dia, anything could be eaten. It just depended on whether you knew how to cook it. Lei Xingfeng said, I wonder if this snake counts as a vicious beast. No, is it a vicious python? Jean Dia said, I don't think so. If this snake coils around a person, it might be dangerous. However, with our skills, even Jean Dia would not be able to hold it down easily. Lei Xingfeng thought about it and said, forget about this snake. Let's find a place to rest. After 4 days and 4 nights, I'm really tired. After 4 days and 4 nights without sleep and rest, even if they were top-level sages, they were still exhausted. Jean Dia said, I'll find it. I'll arrange it. Throughout the journey, he slept and ate as he pleased. He did not delay at all. After all, he was riding on Jean Dia's back. Jean Dia said, okay, you arrange it. We'll sit here for a while and rest when Jean Dia is done. The ground was covered with huge, intertwined roots. Through the dense roots, they could see the water below. This tree could be said to be a giant tree floating on the swamp. Lei Xingfeng found a thicker root and sat down. He stretched and said, this is the first time I've tried to travel without caring about my life. It's too scary. Tiger Love said, Brother Jean has a harder. You have to fly so far with a big fatty on your back. Jean Dia said, I won't bring him out in the future. Isn't this torture? Lei Xingfeng could not help but laugh. He said, it's because the terrain here is wrong. It's all swamp. There's no solid ground. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so troublesome. Jean Dia raised his head to look and said, what is this fellow doing? Ding ding dang dang. He did not see anything. The dense branches and leaves of the trees blocked his view. Tiger Love said, you don't have to worry about him. In any case, he's a sage, not a child. Jean Dia said, forget it. I can't care so much. I'm worried for nothing. Tiger Love laughed. He could hear the love in Jean Dia's voice. Jean Dia said, a phone, your golem beast, is too powerful. It can actually defeat a monarch. He could not imagine that a golem beast could be so powerful. Tiger Love also said, yeah, it's too scary. It can actually suppress a monarch. I'm stunned. Lei Xingfeng said, that's because he doesn't understand the golem beast. If there's a distance between them, even the golem beast can't control him. A monarch is a monarch after all. At most, they can't do anything to each other. However, if there are 2 golem beasts, a normal monarch can't win. Tiger Love asked curiously, how many golem beasts do you have? Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, 3 golem beasts. Jean Dia could not help but exclaim, a phone, you're too evil. You deliberately dug a hole for that guy to jump into. Lei Xingfeng said, if I wasn't confident, how would I dare to provoke a monarch? It's not like I don't know how powerful a monarch is. Tiger Love laughed and said, that monarch who was tricked will probably regret it to death when he goes back. Jean Dia said, if I were that monarch, I would definitely beat that little fatty half to death when I go back. He's 2F asterisk king tricked me, Lei Xingfeng suddenly slapped his head and said, sigh, I'm a pig. Jean Dia asked curiously, what's wrong? Lei Xingfeng laughed bitterly and said, I thought that since it's a swamp, we can't fall. Actually, we could just send a small boat. Damn, we actually flew for 4 days and 4 nights. That's too stupid. Jean Dia and Tiger Love were stunned. After a while, Jean Dia said, you're right, but where did we get a small boat? Lei Xingfeng said, I have one. I always keep a small boat in my hidden Lewin space. This time, I actually forgot all about it. Sigh, I wasted so much energy and was so tired that I pissed my pants. This is ridiculous. Jean Dia and Tiger Love were both amused by Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng also felt that it was funny. He shook his head and said, you're asking for trouble. Fortunately, there's still a long way to go. I think we'll find land. Jean Depang climbed down from the tree and said, okay, Let's go up together. The three of them flew up. Jean Dia grabbed Jean Depang and flew up as well. They saw that on the intersecting thick tree trunks, several large wooden planks were nailed together to form a small platform. There was even a small wooden shed on top, which could block things that fell from above, such as bird droppings and insects. Lei Xingfeng was full of praise. Not bad. Although it's rough, it's enough for resting. There's also a layer of animal skin on top of the wooden planks. Lei Xingfeng fell down and said, I'm not going to cultivate. I'll sleep first. After saying that, he started snoring loudly. He was really exhausted. Jean Dia said, Depang, you guard it. We'll sleep first. We'll talk when we wake up. Jean Depang and Tiger Love also fell asleep, snoring loudly. Jean Depang knew how hard it was for the three of them, so he silently sat on the side and waited. Lei Xingfeng was awakened by a strong fragrance. He opened his eyes and sat up. He immediately saw Jean Depang barbecuing meat. This guy had placed a barbecue rack on a tree branch and set it over a charcoal brazier. The side of the rack was full of barbecued meat. Large pieces of meat were skewered with steel rods, roasting until they were golden brown and plump. Suddenly, Xian Feng felt his mouth full of saliva. He crawled 2 steps and grabbed a skewer of barbecued meat, eating it in big bites. Following the sound of his chewing, Jean Dia and Sherhu's snoring stopped, and the two of them sat up. Jean Dia's eyes were still closed. He said, Is it that fragrant? Tiger Love didn't say anything. He crawled 2 steps toward the direction of the barbecued meat, reached out for the steel rods, and started eating as well. Jean Dia didn't show any signs of weakness. He also grabbed a piece of barbecued meat and started eating. Jean Depang had already barbecued over 100 skewers. Each skewer weighed nearly half a kilogram. They were all fist-sized pieces of meat, and each skewer had 4 or 5 pieces. For a cultivator's appetite, this kind of meat was more satisfying. Like a whirlwind, the barbecued meat in the brazier was swept clean. The last skewer was snatched by Lei Xingfeng. This guy's eating method was terrible. He held a skewer in each hand and ate it with both hands. Jean Dia said, Feng, you're too fast. Lei Xingfeng giggled. I'm starving. Hee, this is too good. Fatty, your cooking skills have improved again. Jean Depang laughed. Is it because after eating this, you can't eat anything else anymore? Lei Xingfeng nodded. Yes, it's too delicious. Jean Depang smiled. Then you'll bring me out again next time? Lei Xingfeng said, I don't mind, but you'd better ask Uncle Jean, Jean Dia said, I'd rather eat pancakes. This time, he was in trouble. He had to carry a big fatty and fly so far away. There was no one to replace him. It was too miserable. Jean Depang immediately deflated. Sigh, this is terrible. Then he said resolutely, I have to become a 6th ring sage as soon as possible. If I become a 6th ring sage, will you still bring me along? I'll fly by myself. Jean Dia said, That's not a problem. You can go anywhere you want. Jean Depang said expectantly, I want to go to outer space the most. This time, even Tiger Love spat. He said, Don't even think about it. Even many true monarchs haven't been there, let alone you. Chapter 358. Lei Xingfeng smiled. It's not like we won't have a chance in the future. However, I advise everyone not to think about it. That place is too dangerous. If we go there without the protection of experts, the chances of us dying there are very high. Even a true monarch would be in danger. Jean Dia said, I've never thought about going to outer space. However, that place is a good place to die. When I'm about to die, I'll see if there's a way to go there. It's not a bad idea to see it before I die. Tiger Love nodded. That's a good choice. Seeing the legendary world before you die, you'll be satisfied even if you die. Lei Xingfeng sighed inwardly. Whether it was Jean Dia or Tiger Love, they both relied on yin rings to ascend. Especially Jean Dia, who had already reached his limit and was relying on yin rings to maintain his life. Every year, yin rings would be used to preserve his life, and every year, the number of yin rings he used would increase. Fortunately, he was by Lei Xingfeng's side and didn't lack yin rings. Now, he only needed to use a dozen rings a year. As time passed, he would use up more than 100 rings every year. His body would gradually collapse until the ring's power ran out. Then, he would be on the verge of death, and no one would be able to save him. Jean Dia saw that Lei Xingfeng's expression was a bit ugly. He smiled and consoled him. "It's nothing. If I hadn't met a phone, I probably wouldn't have made it. Back then, it was so difficult to obtain a single ring. I'm already very satisfied." Ever since he followed Lei Xingfeng, Jean Dia had never had to worry about rings. Moreover, he already had enough rings. Any more would be a waste. Lei Xingfeng nodded. He knew that this was Jean Dia's path. Tiger Love and Mad Eagle would also walk this path sooner or later. Once they couldn't ascend to Dao Lord, they would have to use rings to extend their lives. At that time, all of their life's potential would be exhausted. Everyone was beaming with joy as they ate the barbecued meat. They had to admit that Jean Depang's cooking skills were truly superb. Lei Xingfeng went down to the roots at the edge of the giant tree. He scooped up some water and washed it. The water here was extremely clear. It was about a meter deep or less. The bottom of the water was filled with all kinds of aquatic plants. However, the mud under the water had a terrifying ability. If anything heavy stepped on it, it would produce a huge suction force that could easily swallow people and beasts. Jean Depang also came down. While washing the steel bars and basins, he said, "There should be fish and prawns in the water, right?" His words revealed his true colors as a foodie. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but smile. In his past life, he was a foodie. In this life, he really didn't care about food. It was good enough if he could fill his stomach. This was especially true in this life because his body was extremely strong and he could eat a lot. Before he became rich, eating was a big problem. Only now did he no longer have to worry about food and clothing. Of course, he had a great interest in food. However, compared to Jean Depang, Lei Xingfeng was worlds apart. This guy was born to be a foodie. Not only could he eat, but he was also an expert in cooking. As long as it was related to food, there was almost nothing he couldn't do. Lei Xingfeng had given him a few pointers before. These pointers were all from his memories of his past life. This guy quickly grasped them, and the dishes he cooked were incomparably wonderful. Lei Xingfeng was very impressed by this point. If Jean Depang channeled his passion for eating into cultivation, Lei Xingfeng believed that even if he couldn't become a 9th ring sage, it wouldn't be a problem for him to reach 6th or 7th ring. Lei Xingfeng said, "We didn't forget to collect ingredients. I wonder how the fish here are like." Jean Depang pointed at the water and said, "The fish here aren't big. They're only a foot long. They don't seem to be able to grow." Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "Maybe the water is too shallow." Jean Depang said, "I wonder how it tastes. Also, the shape of the fish is very strange." After all, he didn't have much experience and had never seen such flat fish. Lei Xingfeng said, "I think it's a bit muddy." He knew at a glance that this was a fish that liked to drill in the mud. Sure enough, Jean Depang scooped up a fish and looked at it for a while. He nodded and said, "Yes, it's a fishy fish. I don't think it's very tasty. However, the giant snake we got earlier should taste pretty good. I collected all of its blood and put it in a black wooden bucket." Jean Depang landed lightly and said, "Two people flew past." Lei Xingfeng said, "Yes, the people who came in should have completely dispersed. It's normal for some people to pass by." Jean Depang said, "I wonder if there's an end to the swamp." Lei Xingfeng said, "It's fine. If we keep flying, we won't be able to fly for so long. There's a small boat for us to rest on." Jean Depang nodded and said, "Yes. If we fly for another 4 days and 4 nights, I don't know if I can withstand it." "Ha, Depang, I've suffered a loss this time." Jean Depang blushed and said, "Sorry to trouble you." Jean Depang patted Jean Depang's fat shoulder and said with a smile, "I'm just complaining." "Ha, Depang, you've already done very well." This was different from Lei Xingfeng carrying the blackbird. The blackbird was only a foot long and didn't weigh much on his shoulder. After a long time, Lei Xingfeng would even forget that there was something on his shoulder. However, Jean Depang was different. He was carrying Jean Depang on his back. One had to know that Jean Depang's size was almost 3 times that of Jean Depang. Regardless of length, width, or height, he surpassed Jean Depang in all aspects. Not to mention the weight, Jean Depang couldn't bear to carry him on his back. Jean Depang said gratefully, I will work hard to cultivate. Jean Depang said, okay, that's good. This was his only hope for Jean Depang. Tiger Love also flew down and said, how many days will we rest here? Lei Xingfeng said, there's a boat. Let's continue forward. We fly during the day, eat at night, and take turns to keep watch and rest. Jean Dia said, this is much better. If we want to rest, we can rest. If we want to hurry, we can hurry. Hee, I believe that we will definitely walk out of the swamp. I don't believe that this world is made up of swamps. That is almost impossible. Lei Xingfeng said, who knows? Anyway, we'll just keep going in one direction. We'll definitely find something. A ninth ring sage's flying speed was very fast. Even if they hurried on a long journey, they could still fly very far in a day. Tiger Love said, are we leaving now? Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, let's go. There's nothing special here. It's just a giant tree and nothing else. Jean Depang said, Depang, come up. Jean Depang agreed and lay on Jean Depang's back. Lei Xingfeng grimaced. That feeling was really painful. Jean Depang flew into the air with Jean Depang on his back. Lei Xingfeng and Tiger Love followed. After getting their bearings, Lei Xingfeng took the lead and flew into the distance. In less than a day, they saw a large group of giant trees in the distance. This was not land, but a large swamp forest. All the trees were banyan trees floating on the water. Of course, they were not the banyan trees from Lei Xingfeng's previous life. They had the form of banyan trees, but they were even larger than banyan trees. A single tree could occupy dozens or even hundreds of acres of water, forming a huge floating island. Each tree was an island, and then connected to each other to form a large group. The giant trees grew from sparse to dense, until they completely covered the water. Lei Xingfeng hovered in the air and looked at the countless flying birds. Maybe this is the edge of the swamp. He guessed. Jean Depang said, maybe. It's getting dark. I didn't expect to find a place to rest in less than a day. Compared to the solid ground brought by the giant trees, the small boat was too small. Of course, they preferred to rest on the giant trees. Tiger Love said, I'll go clear space. The inside of the giant trees was lush with leaves and branches, and there were very few gaps. They needed to be manually cleared. Tiger Love easily cut open the branches and leaves, and on the dozen or so thick branches, he quickly built a wooden plank to form a platform. Only then did Jean Depang, and Lei Xingfeng land. Lei Xingfeng said, check. If there's anything dangerous, remove it. Jean Depang said, let me do it. Let me do it. He took out a long knife and cut down the tree trunk. Lei Xingfeng sat down and said, Uncle Jean, didn't you say there were several kinds of ferocious beasts here? Why haven't we seen any? Haha, I want to see what ferocious beasts look like. Jean Depang shook his head. It's normal that we haven't seen any. If we saw them every time we came, then the density of ferocious beasts would be terrifying. This is normal. Lei Xingfeng thought for a moment and said with a smile, yes, if we encountered them often, it would be abnormal. If a ferocious beast was very powerful, then its hunting range must be very wide. The more powerful a ferocious beast was, the larger the territory it needed, so it was normal that it was rare. Jean Depang quickly returned to the platform with a lot of prey in his hands. He said, there are all kinds of water birds here. Ha, today we'll eat birds. The blackbird flew into a rage. Eat your mother's head. Jean Depang suddenly slapped his forehead. How could he forget this enemy? He explained, this is a water bird, not a blackbird. Lei Xingfeng looked at the excited blackbird with amusement. He said, what's your relationship with water birds? Relatives? The blackbird said, Ga, how is that possible? I'm a talking bird, and I have the noble thunder attribute. How can I be related to such a lowly water bird? Lei Xingfeng said, then why are you so excited? The blackbird said, he wants to eat birds. Lei Xingfeng said, it's not like you're going to eat it today. I've eaten too much in the past, and I've never seen you speak." The blackbird quacked and was suddenly speechless. After a long while, he said, "You're bullying birds again." He turned his head away with grievance. His master was too heartless. Jean Depang and Tiger Love were amused. The blackbird would go crazy from time to time and say something unreliable. In the end, he would be directly suppressed by Lei Xingfeng. He had experienced this kind of thing too many times. The blackbird was completely controlled by Lei Xingfeng and couldn't resist at all. Jean Depang carried a pile of prey and said, "It looks like it's going to rain." Lei Xingfeng was shocked and said, "What?" Jean Depang said, "I see a line of black clouds in the distance. According to my experience, it's likely to rain." He was also shocked by Lei Xingfeng's expression and thought, "What's there to be excited about? It's normal to rain, isn't it?" Lei Xingfeng didn't know how long he had been waiting for the rain, especially on a thunderstorm day. Some rainy days had no thunder and lightning. The more he wanted to find a thunderstorm, the less likely it was to find one. After so many years, it was so difficult to find a good thunderstorm day. Chapter 359. Jean Dia and Tiger Love both knew the reason. Lei Xingfeng said, "I'll go take a look." With a flash, he disappeared from the spot. Jean Dia and Tiger Love followed. Xian Feng flew to a very high place and carefully sensed it. He noticed that his Lei Yin energy was rather lively, causing him to become excited. This was the sign of rain, but it was very faint, and if one didn't pay attention, they wouldn't notice it. There was indeed a dark cloud in the distance, forming a black line. Jean Dia asked, "How is it? Is there a thunderstorm?" He knew how much Lei Xingfeng hoped for a thunderstorm. Lei Xingfeng said, "I'm not sure, and I don't know if the dark cloud will come." Tiger Love said, "If that's the case, then let's go." Lei Xingfeng nodded. "Okay, let's go together." Before Jean Depang finished packing, Jean Dia said, "Depang, let's get ready to go." Jean Depang said, But I haven't cooked yet." Jean Dia said, "What are you cooking for? Hurry up and pack. We're leaving immediately." Jean Depang had no choice but to put everything into his hidden Luan space. The four moved quickly, and in a few minutes, the four of them were back in the air, flying towards the dark cloud. Lei Xingfeng was looking forward to it. If there was a thunderstorm this time, he would be able to smoothly reach the peak of Ninth Ring. At that time, he could prepare to become a monarch. He had been looking forward to this day for a long, long time. Without natural lightning, Lei Xingfeng knew that he wouldn't be able to reach the peak of Ninth Ring so quickly. It would take a long time, at least a few years. Even if his potential was shocking, even if his aptitude was extremely high, it still took time to accumulate Yin energy. Although natural lightning was violent, Lei Xingfeng's Lei Yin was very powerful. Not only could it absorb lightning, it could also quickly convert it into Lei Yin energy to nourish his body and strengthen his cultivation. His Lei Yin was much stronger than other people's Yin energy. Lei Xingfeng flew extremely fast, leaving Jean Dia and Tiger Love behind. Jean Dia carried Jean Depang on his back, so he couldn't increase his speed. Tiger Love wanted to catch up to Lei Xingfeng, but after flying for a while, he realized that he couldn't. He could only wait and fly with Jean Dia. Tiger Love laughed. "A Feng is anxious." Jean Dia nodded. "Yeah, I didn't expect it either. In the past, there were thunderstorms all the time, but ever since I met Feng, I haven't been able to see them anymore. No wonder he's so anxious, he." Jean Depang didn't know this secret. Puzzled, he asked, "Why are you looking for a thunderstorm?" Tiger Love explained, "A Feng wants to cultivate. A thunderstorm is the best." Jean Depang wasn't stupid. He asked, "Is it because of the lightning attribute?" Tiger Love nodded. "Yes, it's because of the lightning attribute." Jean Depang couldn't help but praise, "Amazing. You can cultivate like this?" Everyone knew how dangerous the lightning on a thunderstorm was. Forests appeared on the surface of the water. Gradually, only a few wide rivers could be seen on the surface of the water. All kinds of wild animals also increased. It was different from the swamp. Aside from a variety of birds, there were almost no other animals in the swamp. Moreover, it was abnormally quiet. Here, the whole world was different. noisy flocks of birds, groups of monkeys shuttled through the trees, and the roars of wild animals could be heard from the forest from time to time. This was the scene of a tropical rainforest. Lei Xingfeng had already flown to the sky above this boundless forest. After looking around, he turned to the left. The clouds that were thickest, and it was so dark that it seemed like a huge hat was pressing down on him. Lei Xingfeng could faintly hear the sound of thunder and the faint lightning in the sky. Unable to suppress the joy in his heart, Lei Xingfeng smiled. At this moment, two people flew over from the side. One of them shouted, "Hey, friend over there, please stop." Lei Xingfeng didn't have time to pay attention to them. His figure flew away like a bolt of lightning. The two people couldn't help but curse as they chased after him. Lei Xingfeng was in a hurry to enter the thunderstorm area. How could he stop talking? The thunderstorm was gone just like that. He didn't dare to waste any time and flew forward with all his might. His speed reached a terrifying level. The two people chasing after him were also a bit surprised. One had to know that their speed wasn't slow. They were actually getting farther and farther away. One of them said, "Who is this person? How can he fly so fast?" The other said, "This guy is too annoying. He didn't even answer a single question. This won't do. I want to beat him up." At this moment, the sound of something flying through the air came from behind them. The two of them turned to look and saw two people flying past them from the side. What made the two of them dumbfounded was that one of them was so fat that he did not look like a human. His body was so huge that the two of them could only stare at him. In an instant, the two people overtook them. How can this guy be so big? No, he's carrying a person on his back. A small person carrying a big fatty. Damn it. He must be a disciple of a secret sect. He can't even fly yet, but he's already here with a bodyguard. That guy really has a hard life. Hurry up and catch up. We'll ask them. The two people chased madly as they talked. But what they didn't expect was that they couldn't catch up even with these two people. It was no wonder that they'd only just become ninth ring sages. Jean Dia was at the peak of ninth ring. Tiger Love wasn't that bad either. Because he had a large number of rings, Tiger Love was close to the peak of ninth ring. Lei Xingfeng was getting closer and closer to the thunderstorm area. He could clearly see the huge lightning bolts striking down from the clouds. He was so excited that his entire body began to tremble. The blackbird grabbed Lei Xingfeng's shoulder tightly and screamed, "Ka, you're looking to die? Don't go in. It's too scary. Scared the hell out of me. Scared the hell out of me." The lightning struck down, and the rolling thunder rolled over. The rumbling was enough to make one's heart tremble. This kind of natural power was enough to scare a person to death, let alone a blackbird. Even though the blackbird was also of the lightning element, it was still terrified. Lei Xingfeng said, "Hide to the side. Don't follow me." The blackbird knew that if he continued to follow, he'd be looking for death. He screamed and fled. "Ka! Scared me, scared me." He flapped his wings and flew into the forest below. But he was afraid that he'd be separated from Lei Xingfeng after the thunderstorm was over. He could only stop at the top of a tree and stare at Lei Xingfeng. What happened next almost scared the blackbird. He watched as a bolt of lightning struck Lei Xingfeng. In an instant, Lei Xingfeng became a dazzling ball of light. He screamed, "Oh no, oh no. This guy really got hit. Wahaha-ka. What's going on?" He saw Lei Xingfeng's figure appear little by little from the light. Then Lei Xingfeng flew forward again, but a silver ball of light appeared on top of his head. That was his Leiyin. Countless lightnings struck down. At this time, Lei Xingfeng didn't care about the lightning at all. After so many baptisms of lightning, he was very used to it. This kind of lightning was of great help to him. One after another, lightning struck down. Lei Xingfeng was pleasantly surprised to find that the thunderstorm here was more powerful than any thunderstorm he'd ever seen. Before he reached the middle of the dark clouds, he'd been struck by lightning more than 10 times. This made him hesitate a little, because for the first time, he felt pressure. After going through Leiyin, countless pure Leiyin energy flowed into his body. His cultivation began to grow crazily. Normally, it would take him a day to get Leiyin energy, but he got it in just one breath. This kind of cultivation speed could only be achieved in a thunderstorm. The feeling of his cultivation soaring made Lei Xingfeng very happy. He couldn't help but let out a long whistle to vent the joy in his heart. The black bird hid in the treetops, his body trembling. He muttered, "Abnormal. Why is it so abnormal? This birdman is so scary. Even such a big thunderbolt can't kill him. So scary." Jean Daya and Tiger Love were also close to the edge of the thunderstorm area. They didn't dare to move forward. They immediately descended and soon reached the tree. Jean Daya put down Jean Depang and said, "Find a hole in the tree. With such a big thunderstorm, if you get struck by lightning, you won't be able to survive even if you have Ainley to protect you." Chapter 360. Another bolt of lightning struck Lei Yin. In an instant, Lei Xingfeng began to tremble violently because he couldn't absorb so much lightning energy. He took out a large number of materials and let Lei Yin absorb them in order. Then, he used up the excess lightning. The nine-orifice Lei Yin absorbed a large number of materials that Lei Xingfeng had painstakingly found or exchanged with various materials. Many of them were materials that even true monarchs and heaven monarchs needed. They were all absorbed by Lei Yin bit by bit. After being refined by the lightning, they quickly merged with Lei Yin. Lei Xingfeng was extremely happy. This saved him a lot of trouble. Just refining Lei Yin was enough to make him extremely satisfied. He instinctively felt that Lei Yin was transforming and becoming stronger quickly. The ability to store lightning was also increasing rapidly. If it could store one bolt of lightning, he would have to send the excess Lei Yin energy into Lei Xingfeng's body. Now, it was more than enough to absorb 3 bolts of lightning. Refining Lei Yin was half active and half passive. However, Lei Xingfeng could completely feel the changes in Lei Yin. Gradually, he felt that Lei Yin was himself, and he was Lei Yin. The two of them, one inside and one outside, had an unusual tacit understanding. They were like a piece of paper, but the two sides were one. When all the materials were used up, the nine-orifice Lei Yin's appearance changed greatly. The 9 orifices moved along with the electricity. Lei Xingfeng didn't have time to look carefully. He focused his attention on the chaos wheel. The chaos wheel was Lei Xingfeng's weapon. After he advanced to the 9th ring, True Lord, the chaos wheel's power was too weak. For this reason, he collected a large number of materials to strengthen the chaos wheel and planned to refine it when he was free. However, he was too busy and didn't have the time. He didn't dare to be careless with refining Lei Yin, but improving the quality of the chaos wheel wasn't that urgent. Lei Xingfeng took out the materials that he had collected. These were all precious materials that he had specially collected for the Wheel of Destruction. At this time, Lei Yin could take the initiative to attract lightning and use Lei Yin's lightning power to refine his chaos wheel. Once Lei Yin's power was insufficient, he would take the initiative to attract lightning and strike Lei Yin. After a large amount of materials were melted, the chaos wheel was strengthened bit by bit. The chaos wheel went from solid to nothingness, and then back to solid again. After going back and forth a few times, the materials were consumed bit by bit. Lei Xingfeng had a feeling that the chaos wheel's strength had greatly increased, and its might was definitely different from before. The shape of the chaos wheel was changing. Now, the chaos wheel had 6 spokes. It was a semicircle with 6 sharp protrusions. At first glance, it looked like a rudder wheel. It was dark and lightless. Only the 6 sharp protrusions shone with a silvery white light. The materials could not be thrown in randomly. They had to be thrown in according to order and proportion. There was no secret recipe for this. Instead, it was based on intuition. It was a very mystical intuition. Lei Xingfeng felt that it was very mystical. What surprised Lei Xingfeng was that he had used a lot of Star Eclipse gold cores. Star Eclipse gold cores could not be used all the time. After taking out a pile, only a few would be chosen. Lei Xingfeng quickly understood that the Star Eclipse beasts 8 different types of or veins. Therefore, the metals they excreted were also different. Some were very precious, while others were quite cheap. This thunderstorm was unexpectedly long. It had already been 5 hours, but it was still as crazy as ever. Lei Xingfeng was very happy. Now, he focused all his attention on the Chaos Wheel. He planned to upgrade the Chaos Wheel to a level that matched his in one go. A large number of materials were consumed, especially the various precious metals. Relying on his cooperation with Lei Xingfeng carefully refined the Chaos Wheel. Gradually, he felt full. Then, he realized that the Chaos Wheel was almost done. Looking up at the sky, he saw dark clouds rolling, lightning flashing, thunder rumbling, and torrential rain pouring down. The entire world was turbid. Kacha! Boom! In the distance, a huge tree burst into flames. However, it was immediately extinguished by the heavy rain. Aside from refining the Chaos Wheel, Lei Yin continued to attract lightning. Lightning bolts struck down one after another. Lei Xingfeng could feel Lei Yin's energy growing crazily. This Lei Yin was like a battery. After being refined, its power increased greatly. Compared to the previous Lei Yin, the two were worlds apart. When the Chaos Wheel was finally refined, Lei Xingfeng absorbed it into his body. However, this was not the end. Lei Xingfeng continued to sit on the treetop. He continued to refine the Lei Yin force in his body. At the same time, he exchanged it with Lei Yin. The Yin force flowed back and forth between the two sides. Bit by bit, it cleansed and refined the Chaos Wheel. At the same time, it also tempered the body. The 9 orifices Lei Yin could absorb and refine lightning, turning it into power that Lei Xingfeng could use. That was not all. Through Lei Yin, he could also refine Lei Yin force and increase the power of Lei Yin force. Jean Dia, Jean Depan, and Tiger Love were all hiding in the tree hole. The tree hole they had chosen was very large. Although the inside was irregular, it was more than enough for the 3 of them. Jean Depan even placed a table and 3 chairs. If there was one more person, it would be enough to form a table of mahjong. A large tarpaulin was hung at the entrance of the tree hole to prevent rain from coming in. An oil lamp was placed on the table to illuminate the entire tree hole. Listening to the rumbling thunder outside, the 3 of them did not speak. A few hours later, Jean Dia's expression changed. He said, "This is too long." Jean Depan said, "Do you want to go out and take a look?" Tiger Love said, "Go out? You're looking to die." Jean Depan said, "It's just a bit of lightning. As long as we're careful, it shouldn't be a problem." Tiger Love said, "With your size, you're too big of a target." Jean Depan immediately hugged his head. This was too much of a blow to him. Of course, he had never thought of losing weight. What did losing weight mean? Losing weight meant that he could not eat. If he could not eat, he might as well die. Therefore, even if he was beaten to the point of collapse, he was determined not to lose weight. In order to boost his confidence, he took out all kinds of food and ate them in big bites. His mood immediately became much better. Tiger Love looked at Jean Depan speechlessly. Jean Dia smiled helplessly and said, "Don't worry about him. If he likes to eat, let him eat." The heavy rain, lightning, and thunder lasted all night. It only stopped when dawn came. Jean Dia said, "All right, although it's still raining, there's no thunder or lightning. Let's go out and meet up at the phone." Jean Depan hurriedly put away the table and chairs and ran out. The sky was still gloomy and the rain was still dense. Of course, it was different from last night's downpour. The rain now was much lighter. Jean Dia and Tiger Love had already flown out. Jean Depan was trying his best to climb the treetops. He was extremely resentful that he couldn't fly. With such a heavy body, climbing a tree was a very difficult task. Especially since it had just rained, many parts of the tree were very slippery. A very mournful cry rang out, making Jean Dia and Tiger Love's hair stand on end. "Awoo! Awoo! Ga!" Hearing the word Ga, Jean Dia and Tiger Love already knew that it was a blackbird. "Birdman, where are you, Ga? Birdman, where are you, Ga? This bird can't live without you." A blackbird circled in the rain, calling out again and again. Jean Dia said, "The blackbird is calling out to a phone." They actually separated? Tiger Love said, "With such a big thunderstorm, it's normal for them to separate. It's just that the blackbird's cry is very strange and miserable. In the distance, the two ninth ring sages also followed here yesterday. Of course, they didn't dare to enter the thunderstorm area. Instead, they hid in a tree hole and ran out early in the morning. Of course, they also heard the blackbird's cry. Birdman, where are you, GA? GA, this bird can't live without you. The two felt dizzy listening to it. It was calling out, and in such a wretched way. A blinding flash of lightning rose from the forest and instantly hit the blackbird circling in the air. They heard an angry roar. Shut up. Then, the blackbird's body flashed with electric arcs and fell from the sky. They heard him shout, "Wajie, found it." When the blackbird approached the treetops, it suddenly flapped its wings and shot out like an arrow. Lei Xingfeng was originally very happy. Not only did his cultivation increase greatly, but he was also very satisfied with Lei Yin and the Chaos Wheel's refinement. Who knew that the blackbird would scream like a ghost in the air? It was too unpleasant to hear, so he couldn't help but strike it with lightning. The blackbird had long been used to Lei Xingfeng's beating. It would be uncomfortable if he didn't hit it. When it saw Lei Xingfeng, it immediately looked like it had seen a family member. It circled in a circle and landed on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder. Its small mouth began to comb Lei Xingfeng's hair. This was its exclusive way of pleasing. Birdman, fortunately I found you. Otherwise, this bird wouldn't have a nest. It directly nestled on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder. Only the blackbird would do something like this. Because Lei Xingfeng shot out a bolt of lightning, Jean Dia and Tiger Love both saw it and knew where Lei Xingfeng was. Jean Dia carried Jean Depang on his back and flew towards Lei Xingfeng. Tiger Love laughed as he flew. If it wasn't for the blackbird's strange cry, we wouldn't have been able to find a Feng so quickly. The two ninth ring sages followed along and also saw the lightning. They hesitated. The lightning attribute was not only rare, but also very difficult to deal with. The two looked at each other and made up their minds. They flew towards Lei Xingfeng. The two ninth ring sages saw Lei Xingfeng, Jean Dia, and Tiger Love from afar. They didn't dare to go forward at all. Almost at the same time, they turned around and ran. They weren't stupid. Seeing that there were three ninth ring sages, it would be too stupid to go forward. Lei Xingfeng saw the two aggressive guys coming over, but they ran away. He asked, "Those two, what's the meaning of this?" Jean Dia said, "I don't know." Tiger Love shook his head. "I don't know. They're not people we know." Lei Xingfeng stared for a while and then let it go. This place wasn't a secret space. This was the outer world. As long as you had the ability, you could come in. He laughed. I've gained a lot. I'm already at the peak of ninth ring. Jean Dia nodded. That's amazing. If it wasn't for the monarch level, you would have been able to break through. Tiger Love said, "Let's find a place to rest." The place Exine Feng was at had already been damaged beyond recognition by the lightning. Only a section of a huge tree was left undamaged. The rest of it was charred black, almost burning. Jean Dia said, "Follow me." He carried Jean Depang on his back and flew toward a huge tree that towered above the treetops. Chapter 361. Tiger Love asked, "Why did Blackbird cry so pitifully just now?" Blackbird tilted his head and said, "Who said a bird's cry was pitiful? This bird is calling with deep emotion." Goosebumps rose on everyone's skin. Tiger Love shook his head and said, "Crying like a ghost. I can't hear any deep emotion in it." Blackbird said, "What do you know? This is the deep emotion of a bird. If you can hear it, then you're a bird man." Blackbird said confidently, making Tiger Love speechless. Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "Uncle Tiger, don't talk to him. He's talking about bird logic. Bird logic is different from human logic." Blackbird combed Lei Xingfeng's hair with his beak and said, "You're still the one who understands birds." Lei Xingfeng was speechless at this guy who called himself a bird. This guy either didn't speak, or when he did, it made people feel weird. No matter how you listened to it, it felt weird. Jean Depang suddenly heard, "You're still the one who understands birds." He immediately burst out laughing and said, "Okay, I didn't hear anything." "Huh? Jean Dia slapped him and said, "Go cook something to eat. Something simple is fine. Don't make a big fuss about it. Something simple. Eat until you're full. That's enough." Jean Depang might not be interested in other orders, but he liked this one very much. He said, "No problem. I'll go prepare." He climbed down the tree to find a suitable place to build a platform. Lei Xingfeng and the other two were still standing on top of the tree. There were countless birds circling around them. Jean Dia said, "Is it time to consider becoming a monarch?" Since he'd been following Lei Xingfeng for a long time, Jean Dia knew that Lei Xingfeng's materials for becoming a monarch should be more or less complete. As for yin rings, Lei Xingfeng already had a lot of yin rings. Some of them were given by Lei Xingyao, some were exchanged with ores and materials, and some were given to him by the secret sect. It should be enough. Even if he didn't have enough yin rings, Xi and Feng would be able to obtain them quickly. Without mentioning anything else, a single star eroded gold core could be exchanged for countless yin rings. Thus, yin rings weren't a problem, and his advancement had solved two of his biggest problems. Then there was the problem of whether or not Lei Xingfeng's potential would allow him to advance. With Lei Xingfeng's potential, he had at least a 40 to 50% chance of advancing. If he didn't have any other methods, then his chances of success would be 50-50. In other words, he only had a 50% chance, or maybe even less. However, Lei Xingfeng had several treasures. He had sky crystals and saint crystals. If he used them, of course he would use saint crystals. They could increase his chances of success. With saint crystals, his advancement wouldn't be a problem. However, he had another treasure, the medicine that Lei Xingyao had gotten for him. It was a medicine specifically for advancing to a monarch. With so many preparations, as long as Lei Xingfeng tried to advance, it was practically a done deal. Unless there was an unstoppable accident or injury, there was no way Lei Xingfeng would fail. However, there weren't that many accidents in this world. As long as he was fully prepared, his advancement would naturally follow. Jean Dia had no doubt about this. He had always believed that Lei Xingfeng could definitely advance to a monarch. This was something that both Wu Yang and Gucci agreed with. After all, Lei Xingfeng's potential was too good. Moreover, he relied on thunderstorm rain to advance quickly. He had reached the peak of ninth ring true body at an extremely young age. The younger one was, the easier it was to advance. This was related to life force. The younger one was, the more vigorous their life force was, and the greater their potential to advance. However, if they were too old, their life force would rapidly decline, and their potential to advance would gradually be exhausted. For example, Jean Dia and the others who had used yin rings to advance had almost exhausted their life force. Now that they were relying on yin rings to replenish their life force, even if they were at the peak of ninth ring true body, it was almost impossible for them to advance. This was also why Jean Dia had never considered advancing. Even if he was given saint crystals and shifting glory medicines, he still wouldn't advance. His advancement potential was equal to 0. Tiger Love said, "If a phone can advance to a monarch soon, then the others. Ha, it'll be fun." Lei Xingfeng had a bunch of senior brothers and sisters above him. Once he advanced, these people would have to call him junior uncle. Jean Dia also laughed. "That's right, we've also risen in status and can enter the outer world at any time." Hee, that's right. Feng, if you advance, will you go out and establish your own secret sect? Lei Xingfeng shook his head. "I haven't thought that far yet. Even if I advance, I don't have any thoughts of going out. I'm very satisfied with my current home." Jean Dia nodded. "Although independence is a bit of freedom, it's too difficult. It's better to stay. I've always thought that Feng Chunzong's method was excellent." Xi and Feng agreed. "That's right. Little martial uncle is very smart." Jean Depang called out from below, "All right, come down quickly. It's time to eat." The three quickly flew down from the tree. Jean Depang had already set up a small platform on top of the giant tree's roots. This time, it was filled with dried rations. These were the deep-fried dough cakes he made at home, as well as large chunks of braised meat. Although it was already cold, it still tasted very good. Lei Xingfeng picked up a deep-fried dough cake and laughed. This is what I said last time, and you made it? Jean Depang laughed. Yeah, but I couldn't find any chives, only wild onions. But it tastes great. It's even better when it's fresh out of the pot. It tastes good when it's cold. Lei Xingfeng used a thin, deep-fried dough cake to roll up the braised meat and ate it in big bites. Everyone followed suit. Jean Dias said, "It's really good." Haha, I still have some fishman wine. He took out a few bottles of wine. With a mouthful of deep-fried dough cake and a mouthful of fishman wine, everyone ate with relish. Lei Xingfeng laughed. With Fatty here, we don't have to worry about food. Fatty, once you reach ninth ring, I can take you to many places. Tiger Love nodded. Yeah, with you joining us, we don't have to worry about food. As long as it was a member of Lei Xingfeng's family, they all knew that with Jean Depang around, eating was an enjoyment. Jean Depang's popularity in the family was second only to Lei Xingfeng. Even in the hidden sect, there were many people who were on good terms with him. If it wasn't for his low strength, many good things would have come to him, such as exploring the outer world. Unfortunately, his strength hadn't reached the level of flying, which limited his potential. With deep-fried pancakes filled with meat and fishman wine, this meal was very comfortable for everyone. Xi and Feng ate as he prepared a small bowl of fresh meat for the blackbird to eat alone. Of course, when he ate, he would always complain, "Aiga, my food is getting worse. The bird is getting skinnier. Stingy, why didn't you give the bird the Saturn beast meat? The bird is getting skinnier, Jay." Everyone was already used to Blackbird's complaints. This guy wouldn't be Blackbird if he didn't say strange things. Moreover, if he didn't say strange things, everyone would feel uncomfortable, so no one paid attention to Blackbird's muttering. Jean Dia asked, "Shall we continue forward?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Yes, let's continue forward. I have a feeling that we are going to cross the avocado swamp. Hee hee, I hope we can find some special materials and minerals." Tiger Love said, "There should be very few people who are rushing like us. Other than the two guys we saw earlier, we didn't see any outsiders." Lei Xingfeng said, "Don't worry about those two. They're no threat to us, let alone using the humanoid beast to deal with them." Even Lei Xingfeng dared to attack them himself. He had just reached the peak of ninth ring. Lei Yin and Chaos will have been reforged, and he also stored a large amount of lightning energy. His strength was completely different from before, and he didn't even know how strong he was. However, after Lei Xingfeng had the humanoid beast, he didn't like to fight with his own hands. If he could use the humanoid beast to solve the problem, why would he fight to the death? This was not in line with his philosophy of survival. He wanted to live as safely as possible for the rest of his life. If he didn't fight to the death, then he would die. He had long lost the impulse to fight. After eating, everyone continued on their way, flying into the depths of the forest. Along the way, they stopped and walked, casually looking for useful plants. There were only a few species of huge trees in the forest above the water. They were all huge trees similar to banyan trees that could occupy a large amount of water. One tree could become a forest. Other trees couldn't survive at all, but there were many other plants living on these trees. Most of them were vines, but there were also all kinds of fungi and parasitic orchids. There were also many precious plants. Lei Xingfeng relied on his eyes and saw many strange plants. Although he didn't know what they were used for from the light they emitted, he knew that they were very precious herbs. These herbs were all collected for Lei Xingyao. Lei Xingfeng felt very lucky to have a little sister who knew how to concoct medicine. He had many kinds of medicine that other people treated as treasures, and they were all given to him by Lei Xingyao. Among them, there were 3 plants that Lei Xingfeng purposely stopped to collect. These 3 plants, when Lei Xingfeng flew past, emitted light that could even penetrate the treetops, making it impossible for Lei Xingfeng to ignore them. However, when Lei Xingfeng arrived in front of them, they were completely unfamiliar plants that he had never seen before. One of them grew on the trunk of a huge tree. This huge tree was almost dying, but the plant emitted a red light. Lei Xingfeng saw it from afar. When Lei Xingfeng first saw the plant, he felt as if he was looking at a ball of fire. The bright red leaves and the roots were like needles piercing into the trunk of the huge tree. This plant wasn't big, only half the height of a person and as thick as an arm. It had a total of 7 bright red leaves. Lei Xingfeng specially took out the black ebony wood and made a big wooden box on the spot. Then he carefully collected it, just to dig out the roots of this plant. Lei Xingfeng had no choice but to split open the huge tree trunk. In the trunk, he discovered that there were strings of lumps on the roots of this plant. These lumps were pure black and were only the size of walnuts. Lei Xingfeng found no less than 100 of these black lumps. As for what they were used for, he would only know when he met Lei Xingyao. Xi and Feng had encountered 2 of the same plants, both of which were carefully dug out and collected by him. There was another plant that was even more special because this plant could fly. Its dark blue leaves were like a helicopter that could rapidly rotate, constantly changing its position. If it wasn't for Lei Xingfeng noticing the blue light it emitted, he wouldn't have discovered it at all. This plant was also carefully stored in Lei Xingfeng's hidden Luin space. Chapter 362. It was a fungus that looked like a Ganoderma lucidum. This was the 3rd type of medicinal herb that Lei Xingfeng discovered that could emit light. However, he didn't recognize it either because it was very different from the Ganoderma lucidum he knew. This Ganoderma lucidum had a gorgeous, multicolored color that dazzled under the sun. This was also one of the reasons why Lei Xingfeng stored it in his hidden Luin space. Jean Depan sighed because he didn't know how Lei Xingfeng discovered these strange plants. He asked a few times like a curious baby, but got no answer. Of course, he also asked if these plants could be eaten, but he was scolded by Jean Depan. Finally, on the 11th day, Lei Xingfeng saw a towering mountain range in the distance. Jean Depan sighed. "Oh my God, I finally see hope. This is the first time I've ever felt so hopeless in a forest." It was a boundless forest. If one couldn't fly, for example, a 6th ring sage wouldn't be able to come out alive. It was too easy to get lost in here. A cliff that was thousands of meters high appeared. It stretched endlessly, and one couldn't see the end of it. Countless waterfalls flowed down from it, and countless birds built their nests on the greenish-gray cliff. Flocks of white birds circled in the air, chirping. Jean Depan said, "There are so many birds here. If..." He wanted to say that it would be good to catch some and taste them, but when he saw the blackbird, he couldn't bring himself to say the rest. The blackbird said, "They're all stupid and ugly birds." Lei Xingfeng giggled. "That's not necessarily true. Look at those birds. They're so beautiful." The blackbird immediately exploded. He shouted, "Caw, that's beautiful. A few long hairs on its body is beautiful. So ugly. So ugly. They can't fly fast, can't fly high, and can't talk. They're so weak. Caw, they're so ugly." If the birds Lei Xingfeng pointed at looked like herons, then the blackbird was like a crow. In terms of human aesthetics, herons were 100 times better than crows. Jean Depan also looked back and forth and couldn't help but smile. The blackbird was furious. "What are you looking at? What are you looking at? Can't you see such a beautiful bird?" He called out narcissistically. Jean Depan shook his head honestly, but he didn't dare to bicker with Hein Yao. This guy's poisonous tongue wasn't something anyone could endure. Blackbird said frantically, "Damn fatty, why are you shaking your head? Cramps. Hey, annoying fatty." Jean Depan felt wronged. "Hey, Bude, how can you be like this? I didn't say anything." The blackbird was very agitated and said, "But you shook your head. You shook your head. You shook your head. Quack. You shook your head to mean that I'm not handsome. I'm not pretty. I'm not good. Gah." It wasn't that Jean Depan didn't dare to continue fighting with Blackbird. He had suffered too many losses. He said, "Shaking my head means, I don't know. I don't know anything." The blackbird cried out and said, "Are birds not handsome and beautiful? Tell me, tell me." Lei Xingfeng dug his ears and said, "That's enough. Noisy. Don't talk so much." Blackbird wasn't afraid of others, but he was afraid of Lei Xingfeng. So when Lei Xingfeng spoke, he didn't dare to continue shouting. He stared at him with his small red eyes, which were like gems, and rolled around. If he didn't speak at this time, he would be suffocated to death. Jean Dia flew up with Jean Depang on his back. He said, "Let's go up the cliff and have a look." Tiger Love followed closely behind. Lei Xingfeng's body also rose rapidly, startling the surrounding birds and causing them to fly up and cry. Because their nests were built on the cliff, Lei Xingfeng and the others posed a great threat. After a few breaths, the four of them reached the top of the cliff. From the top of the cliff, they could clearly see the endless forest on the water. Lei Xingfeng was very shocked and said, "It's so big." The endless green forest was interspersed with a few wide rivers. Countless small rivers were faintly visible in the forest. Large flocks of birds flew past noisily. A faint white fog rose from the forest in the distance and rose into the clouds, covering the extremely distant scenery. It was illusory, faintly discernible, just like a fairyland. On the back of the cliff, there were undulating mountains and lush greenery. It was a primeval forest. For the time being, they couldn't see the dangers in it, nor could they see any mineral deposits. However, the feeling of stepping on solid ground was indeed very good. At least Jean Depang was liberated. Here, they didn't have to rush around like crazy. They could explore here, whether it was prospecting for minerals or collecting herbs and plants. Jean Dia was completely relaxed, carrying a person on his back, and this person was a huge fat man. The pressure was not ordinary. In fact, he didn't care about the weight at all. However, he was worried that if he carried the fat man, he wouldn't be able to find him. It was as if the fat man was flying, and he was a small package under the fat man. This was too depressing. No wonder Lei Xingfeng and Tiger Love were unwilling to take over. Who didn't want to carry a mountain on their head? Jean Dia laughed and said, "We don't need to rush. Let's walk slowly. Hopefully, we can find something valuable. Then, this trip won't be in vain. Of course, a phone is already worth the price of the ticket. Hee hee." Jean Depang rushed down the cliff like a child. As he ran, he shouted wildly. He was also very depressing. The blackbird said coldly, "A ball rolled down? Ga." Lei Xingfeng said, "Well, the fat man is good to you. Don't keep an eye on him all day." The blackbird said, "Of course I have to keep an eye on him." Lei Xingfeng was puzzled and asked why. The blackbird said, "The fat man is easy to bully. He doesn't hold grudges. Ga." Lei Xingfeng's face was full of black lines. This blackbird was simply too bad. He said, "He doesn't hold grudges. He's easy to bully. You bully him?" The blackbird cawed twice and said, "Of course." Jean Dia was very indignant and said, "Why don't you bully a phone?" The blackbird looked up and said, "Idiot. The bird wouldn't dare, unless the bird is looking for death. Besides, why would the bird bully a phone? He's the boss, uncle, ancestor. Well, to tell the truth, the bird has love." Uffed. Tiger Love immediately burst out laughing. Since the bird had love, what else could this blackbird not say? Jean Dia was dumbstruck. After a long while, he said, "Man and bird. I can't explain it clearly anymore. I'm going down." Tiger Love said, "I'm going down too. I'd better stay away from the bird." He ran down as well. Lei Xingfeng said, "All right, you scared them away. If you don't know how to speak, then don't speak. You've lost all my face." The blackbird didn't dare to go against Lei Xingfeng. So when Lei Xingfeng spoke, he usually kept his mouth shut and only combed Lei Xingfeng's hair in a flattering manner. From the beginning when he met Lei Xingfeng, he was arrogant and despotic. Now, the blackbird had been completely subdued by Lei Xingfeng. Not only did the blackbird know how to curry favor and act cute, it also worked hard to comb its hair in an attempt to gain the favor of its master. Of course, the blackbird was not so polite to others. When it opened its mouth to speak, other than ridicule, it would spit out venom. As for Wu Yang and Gucci, the blackbird didn't dare to be presumptuous even if it was beaten to death. With a little pressure, the blackbird would tremble for a long time. How would it dare to speak nonsense? Lei Xingfeng flew down the mountain. It was rare for him to run down one step at a time. When they arrived at the foot of the mountain, Jean Dia said, "It's strange. The cliff that separates the avocado swamp seems to be man-made. It just blocks the swamp water and separates this world." Well, of course, I'm talking about if there are people. Ordinary people can't go up the cliff, and people on the cliff can't go down. Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "You're thinking too much." Jean Dia also laughed and said, "Yes, I'm thinking too much. Before we came, there was no one living in this world." Lei Xingfeng said, "This should be an uninhabited world. At least the natives here are not humans." Tiger Love said, "That's not necessarily true. After all, we've only been to a few places. If the natives of this world were small enough and scattered enough, it's very likely that we wouldn't see them." Lei Xingfeng said, "There aren't many natives in the outer world. A world with humans is even rarer. However, there are many strange beasts and ferocious beasts. Even those ferocious beasts aren't easy to see." They started to move forward from the foot of the mountain. They talked and laughed, appearing to be very relaxed. Jean Depang took the lead and ran at the front. From time to time, he would pull up some plants from the ground, smell them, and even taste them. Then he would spit them out and throw them away. Lei Xingfeng knew that he was looking for edible plants. He knew that some plants could be used as spices. As long as he found suitable plants, he would collect them and bring them back to cultivate. Pei, it's so bitter." Jean Depang kept spitting saliva. He had just collected a handful of leaves and was stimulated by the bitter taste when he tried them. Tiger Love laughed and said, "Depang, why are you chewing on leaves for no reason? It's not like you don't have anything to eat." He couldn't understand this guy's actions at all. Jean Dia said, "Let alone chewing on leaves, he's even eating grass. I don't understand what's wrong with him." Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "He's not crazy. He's just looking for something to eat." Jean Depang was immediately moved and said, A Feng understands me so well. Humph, you guys eat a lot every day. How would you know my painstaking efforts and pursuit? If I didn't try all kinds of plants, how could there be delicious ingredients?" Tiger Love sighed and said, "As long as a person focuses on something, he can definitely reach the top." Jean Dia also sighed and said, "Damn, this kid just doesn't do his job." Lei Xingfeng said, "It's still better than nothing. It's a blessing to be able to eat and know how to eat. We're basking in his light." Jean Dia and Tiger Love also admitted that when they were at home, as long as Jean Depang was around, they wouldn't eat food cooked by others. It had to be Jean Depang's cooking. If they were outside, the dry rations they brought with them were mostly made by Jean Depang. He was Lei Xingfeng's logistics officer. The mountainous terrain was steep, the forest was dense, and there were streams and rocks mixed in. It was a primitive scenery. Lei Xingfeng said, "I reckon this is the first time someone has entered this place. I wonder who gave out the coordinates of this outer world. It's really benefiting a lot of people." Tiger Love said, "There are many outer world coordinates. As long as an outsider is brought in, the information will spread very quickly. I reckon the owner of this outer world must have been scammed." Lei Xingfeng thought for a while and couldn't help but nod and say, "That's very likely, Chapter 363. Not only were there competition between secret sects, but there were also wars. The competition between the secret sects was fierce, and the secret struggle had never stopped. It was only on the surface that they maintained a good relationship. This kind of cheating was quite common, so it was not unusual for such things to happen. Since Jean Depang could not fly, the four of them walked quite easily and at a moderate speed. Of course, there was no road here. Lei Xingfeng just identified the direction, and, as long as it was the right direction, they kept going down. After climbing over a few mountains, they did not find any ores, but they did find a lot of rare plants. Some of them were unknown to them, but they were all dug out by Lei Xingfeng. Jean Depang climbed to the top of a mountain and stood there. He roared, "Wow, wow, wow. Oh, the echoes reverberated." Jean Depang seemed a little excited. He roared again, Hey, hey." Lei Xingfeng followed him to the top of the mountain. He said, "What are you roaring for, Fatty?" Blackbird said, "Fatty is a lot of fun." Jean Depang did not pay attention to Blackbird at all. He knew that if he talked back, there would be trouble. He said, "It feels good to vent." Jean Dia and Tiger Love also climbed up. The two of them stood on a big rock at the top of the mountain and looked into the distance. Exine Feng laughed. I'll also roar, oh, oh. Jean Dia and Tiger Love also roared together. For a moment, the mountains were filled with their roars. Blackbird said, a bunch of lunatics. He could not help but complain. However, only he could hear his voice. If Lei Xingfeng was unhappy, he would be in trouble. After roaring for a long time, the four of them were finally satisfied. They laughed and laughed. Jean Depan said proudly, when I'm not happy, I will roar a few times. Miraculously, my mood will be better. Roaring here feels a little different. It feels better, hee. Lei Xingfeng said, it is indeed different, hee. Blackbird suddenly said, is there a light spot over there? Is there a fight? No one paid attention to Blackbird. The four of them continued to chat. Blackbird was angry. He pecked Lei Xingfeng's ear and said, Bird said, is there a fight over there? Gah, it shouldn't be a fight. It's a light spot. Lei Xingfeng turned his head and said, are you biting me? Blackbird was terrified. He mumbled, I didn't, I'm innocent. I'm just telling you, there's a little light there. Why are you ignoring me? Gah. Exine Feng asked, where? The blackbird stretched out its wings and pointed to the left, saying, there's a light spot over there. The bird saw it. Jean Dia put his hand on his forehead and looked at it carefully for a while. He said, it's a little strange. Why are there bright spots? Shihu said, why don't we go and take a look? Exine Feng laughed. All right, let's go take a look. Uncle Jean, I'll trouble you to carry this fatty, he. Jean Dia carried Jean Depang on his back and said, I'm asking for trouble. Jean Depang suddenly felt embarrassed. He said, sorry for the trouble. Sigh, it's my fault for not knowing how to fly. Jean Dia said, forget it. Don't talk about this useless thing. Let's go. He took the lead and flew quickly toward the light spot. Lei Xingfeng and Tiger Love followed. They were curious. Blackbird was still showing off. Wow, it was the bird who found it first. This is the bird's credit. No one can take it away. Gah, birds have a pair of sharp little eyes. They can see treasures far away. Gah, 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 gah. Tiger Love said, this guy seems to be noisy recently. Lei Xingfeng sighed and said, yes, he keeps showing off. I don't know where he gets such a good feeling from. Blackbird was angry, but he didn't dare to provoke Lei Xingfeng. He was angry at Tiger Love. What do you mean noisy? Guy, you noisy. Your whole family is noisy. You, noisy, noisy. Gah. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh. Tiger Love also shook his head and laughed. This little thing has a big temper. Both of them had the same attitude toward Blackbird. Blackbird was like a child who liked to go against people. However, when they were bored, teasing him was actually kind of fun to avoid boring the journey. If Blackbird knew that the two of them had such thoughts, he would probably go crazy again. Seeing that Tiger Love didn't refute him, he suddenly became proud. Of course I have a big temper. Are you afraid? If you're afraid, don't call me a bird. Rushing all the way, the four of them soon arrived at the flash point. It was a cliff about 900 meters high and 1,000 meters wide. It was about a square. The most surprising thing was that at the top of the cliff, there was a mirror-like thing. It was extremely flat. This mirror-like flat surface was about 10 meters high and 30 meters wide. Its shape was irregular, as if it was ground out on the cliff. Lei Xingfeng could clearly see his own reflection, Jean Dia and Jean Depang beside him, Tiger Love behind him, and Blackbird on his shoulder. He said, what the F*** CK? Why is there such a huge mirror here? Jean Depang waved his hands and said, amazing. Who did this? Jean Dia scolded, don't F*** King move. If you move again, I'll throw you down. Jean Depang immediately became obedient. He was just too excited and didn't intend to provoke Jean Dia. Tiger Love said, is this man-made? Lei Xingfeng said, wait, I'll take a closer look. As he spoke, he flew over and hovered in front of the mirror. This mirror was too clear, even clearer than the glass mirrors in Lei Xingfeng's previous life. Moreover, the smoothness of the mirror was unbelievable. Lei Xingfeng couldn't understand it all. Just how much strength did one need to embed such a large mirror into the cliff? It was almost impossible. As for whether it was naturally formed, that was a joke. How could a naturally formed mirror be so smooth and clear? Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but reach out to touch it. In an instant, his heart trembled because his finger didn't touch anything substantial. Instead, his finger went through the mirror as if it didn't exist. This is impossible. Lei Xingfeng's hand had already reached into the mirror. Of course, he didn't feel any danger. His finger could still feel it, but it didn't touch anything. It was no different from reaching out into the air. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but shout, "Come here!" Jean Dia flew over with Jean Depang on his back and said, "What's wrong?" Tiger Love also came over. Lei Xingfeng said, "This isn't a mirror. It looks like a light screen." "Light screen? What's that?" Tiger Love didn't quite understand. He reached out to touch it and said in surprise, "There's nothing here." Jean Dia also tried to touch it and said in shock, "What is this?" Tiger Love slightly moved forward and put his whole arm in. He said, "There's nothing blocking it. Do you want me to go in and check it out?" Lei Xingfeng hesitated for a moment and said, "Just a little test." "All right, tie a rope to your waist. If something goes wrong, we can pull you back." Tiger Love nodded. "Okay." Lei Xingfeng took out a rope and tied it to Tiger Love's waist. He said, "Give it a try." In an instant, Tiger Love disappeared into the mirror. One end of the rope was still in Lei Xingfeng's hand. Jean Dia and Jean Depang stared at the swaying rope with a trace of worry in their eyes. Lei Xingfeng kept releasing the rope. After a while, Tiger Love came out and said, "We can go in. There shouldn't be any danger." Lei Xingfeng took back the rope and said, "Let's go in." The four of them directly entered the strange mirror. When they entered, the entire mirror suddenly shrank by half. Naturally, Lei Xingfeng and the others didn't see it. When they entered the mirror, the first thing they felt was that it was a cave. Moreover, the cave wasn't very big. They followed the cave passage for about 100 meters before they saw a curved path. Just as they turned the corner, the four of them saw another mirror. Because they were still in the cave, the mirror was very dim. Their figures in the mirror were also blurry. Jean Dia said, "There's another mirror here. Could it be like the previous one? Can we go through it?" Tiger Love said, "I think so." Jean Depang laughed. "Let's go and see. There doesn't seem to be anything else here except for this strange mirror." This mirror was a thin strip that stretched across the bottom of the cave. It was 100 meters long, but only 1 to 2 meters tall. It was a long mirror, and its shape was also irregular. It was a very strange thing, and no one knew how it was formed. Tiger Love said, "I'll go scout." Lei Xingfeng said, "Come back after taking a look. Don't stay for too long." Tiger Love found the highest point, and his body gradually floated up. When he was about a foot above the ground, he approached the mirror. As expected, his body entered the mirror bit by bit and soon flew out. Tiger Love was very careful. He was afraid that the outside of the mirror would be a cliff. If he foolishly took a step out, he would probably fall down. In just a few breaths, Tiger Love came back. His expression was very strange. Lei Xingfeng asked, "What's wrong?" Jean Dia asked curiously, "What's there?" Tiger Love was a little confused. "This isn't the world we're in. It seems to be another world." So strange, since there was no danger. Lei Xingfeng directly rushed through the mirror. Jean Dia and Jean Depang also rushed out. Tiger Love smiled bitterly and also followed. Lei Xingfeng rushed out of the mirror. When he looked up, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. The sky was gray. Behind him was a huge rock wall. The place he came out from was a pitch-black crack. It was unfathomably deep. There was no color here. It was as if he had suddenly entered a black and white world. His nose smelled a faint fishy smell. Countless withered trees with strong branches exuded a strange feeling. White bones could be seen in the soil on the ground. It was a very oppressive world. The four of them were all stunned. They all looked back and saw the black crack. Lei Xingfeng said, "Wait." He turned around and flew directly into the crack. Soon he came back. Chapter 364. Lei Xingfeng said, yes, this crack is the way back. Tiger Love said, I made a mark in case we can't go back. Jean Dia said, if we didn't come out from there, we wouldn't have known that it was a passage. Damn it, what is this place? Lei Xingfeng and the others didn't know that after they entered this world, the mirror on the cliff outside disappeared. Jean Depang was in high spirits. He said, why don't we go and take a look? As long as there's a way back, we don't have to worry. If we can't go back, we can go back. Jean Dia said, okay, Depang, you stay here and wait for us to come back. Jean Depang's face suddenly turned bitter. He said, well, I'd better go with you guys. I feel cold in here alone. Blackbird said, coward. Jean Depang said, why don't you go with me? Blackbird immediately exploded. He said, go with you my ass. Caw, I won't go with you. Caw, caw. In fact, he was also afraid. This place was very strange. Exine Feng spoke. All right, stop quarreling. Let's go together. He released 6 silver rank mannequins and spoke. Don't worry. We have helpers. There's no need to be afraid. 6 silver rank mannequins could even fight against a monarch, causing everyone to relax. Jean Dia said, let's go and see what is here. Why is it so desolate? Even the color has disappeared. The whole world was black, white, and gray, just like the black and white movies in Lei Xingfeng's previous life. There was no color, and it gave people a very strange feeling. The 4 of them were a little scared, but no one was willing to say it out loud. Jean Depang raised his hand, and Blackbird cawed twice. Everyone knew that Blackbird's laughter was a caw, but they didn't know what it was laughing about. Blackbird said, fatty is stupid caw caw. Jean Depang rolled his eyes and said, there is no wind here. There is no wind at all. Lei Xingfeng said, well, everything here seems to be frozen. Let's go. The 4 of them took the 6 silver puppets and walked forward. This time they didn't fly. No one knew what dangers there would be in the sky. This was a common sense for cultivators. In an unfamiliar place, one should move on the ground as much as possible. Lei Xingfeng knew how dangerous it was to fly in the sky in the outer space. There was a large amount of dead branches and leaves on the ground, as well as dead weeds. They had all completely decayed. When they stepped on them, those seemingly intact dead branches and leaves instantly turned into dust. The dust that rose from their feet slowly rose behind them as they moved forward. Blackbird couldn't help but say, G.A.? Jean Depang stretched out his hand and patted a withered tree beside him. Before he could say anything, the withered tree suddenly turned into dust and drifted down. Jean Depang ran to the side with his face covered in dust and said, bah, bah, this tree has already turned into dust. Jean Depang stomped on the ground. A vibration wave spread out, and the dead trees around them all collapsed, raising even more dust. The 4 of them quickly avoided the dust. Lei Xingfeng exclaimed, how many years did it take for the trees to decay to this extent? Jean Depang said, it's unimaginable. Without a certain amount of time, it would be impossible. It would take tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years. Of course, this is just my guess. There is no way to estimate the exact time. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, no matter how long it took, we have to figure out where we are. This place doesn't look like the outer space at all. Of course, it's not like the outer space either, Tiger Love said. Don't worry about what it is. Let's see what's here. Jean Depang smiled and said, let's keep going. Maybe we'll find the answer. They went over a mountain ridge and climbed up a mountain peak. In front of them was a boundless plain. The scenery was still monotonous and colorless. The whole world was black, white, and gray. Only the branches of the trees were left. There was still no wind, and it was silent. This was a dead world. Standing on a mountain peak, Lei Xingfeng stared into the distance and said, is that a building? Jean Depang said, where? Lei Xingfeng pointed and said, beside the dead forest. Is that a building? There seems to be a spire. It doesn't look like something formed naturally. It's very regular, like a man-made building. Tiger Love said, should I fly over? Lei Xingfeng hurriedly said, no, please don't. If we fly, we'll be too big of a target. If there are any remaining defenses, then we'll be clear targets. Let's run over. It's a bit far, but with our strength, it's still very fast. The four of them ran towards the building with the 6 silver puppet beasts in tow. Along the way, smoke and dust rose. It was as if an earth dragon was pushing towards the building. Wherever they passed, everything turned into dust. This was a small village with about a dozen families. Lei Xingfeng and the other 3 stood at the entrance of the village. Jean Depang said, "There doesn't seem to be anyone here." Tiger Love said, "Nonsense, of course there's no one here. Look at the dust on the ground and the houses. It's almost as thick as a palm." The houses were well preserved. Although they looked black and white and were covered by a thick layer of dust, the houses were still intact. However, the premise was that they didn't touch the houses. Based on Lei Xingfeng and the others' experience, the houses should have crumbled. Perhaps a slight tremor would destroy the buildings. Lei Xingfeng said, "Everyone wait here. I'll go in and take a look." Jean Depang said, "I'll go in with you." Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "No need. I'll go in alone. Be careful. I keep having a strange feeling." Jean Depang said, "I don't feel anything. It's just that this place is too strange." Lei Xingfeng walked into the village step by step. The buildings here were made of wood and were very exquisite. Although they were covered by a thick layer of dust, they could still clearly see the exquisite carvings on them. The doors were all sliding doors and had to be pushed to the side. However, the moment Lei Xingfeng touched the door, the wooden door collapsed. Boom! The chain reaction caused the entire building to collapse rapidly. Lei Xingfeng fled backwards. A cloud of dust rose. Following the tremor, the surrounding buildings collapsed one after another. In less than a minute, the entire village was shrouded in dust. Lei Xingfeng had already escaped to the entrance of the village. Tiger Love was a little nervous and asked, "What's wrong?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Mother of **, it's all collapsed. It can't stop at all. I just touched it and it all collapsed." After the dust settled, the 4 of them went in to take a look. After a round, they didn't find anything. Everything had turned to dust. They didn't find anything valuable at all. The 4 of them looked at each other. After a while, Tiger Love said, "This place is very evil. Should we continue, or should we leave?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Continue. Why should we leave? Of course we should continue to search. I keep feeling that there's a secret here. It's just that I don't know what the secret is." Jean Depang said, "Let's continue searching. I don't believe that we can't find anything." Jean Depang also said, "I agree." The blackbird only said one word, "Let's do it." Hearing this, everyone was speechless. They thought, "Why is a bird like you joining in the fun?" The 4 of them continued to move forward quickly. After walking for about an hour, they saw another small village. This time, no one waited at the village entrance. Everyone walked into the village together. Lei Xingfeng pointed at the wooden buildings and said, "On the surface, they seem to be intact, but in reality, they're all dust. This time we won't enter the rooms. We'll look outside and see what's in the rooms." Jean Depang said, "I'll go this way. I'll go check out that house." He took to his heels. Lei Xingfeng suddenly had a bad feeling. Before he could say anything, Jean Depang's heavy footsteps caused the house to collapse. This guy's footsteps actually caused all the houses in the small village to collapse. Jean Depang cursed angrily. "Bastard, can't you be quieter? You can also cause houses to collapse, just by walking." Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh. Jean Depang's face immediately turned pale. He ran outside in a sorry state. Lei Xingfeng and the others also turned around and ran out. They weren't afraid of the collapsed houses, but they couldn't stand the rising dust. Even so, the 4 of them were covered in dust. The 6 humanoid beasts were also covered in dust. Jean Depang looked very uncomfortable, as if he had done something wrong and didn't know what to do. Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, all right, it's not that big of a deal. It's just a house in a small village that collapsed. Let's continue moving forward." Suddenly, the ground shook. It was a very clear feeling, as if a big drum had been struck. Tiger Love said, "What?" All of a sudden, the whole earth began to shake violently. In an instant, All the withered trees and branches turned into ashes. The whole world was filled with dust and smoke. Lei Xingfeng and the others couldn't see more than 5 meters away. The ground shook violently. Lei Xingfeng and the others had no choice but to fly up. They didn't dare to fly too high, only a foot above the ground. They didn't want to be affected by the shaking. Jean Depang was more miserable. He didn't have a piggyback this time, and he couldn't stand steadily on the shaking ground. He swayed left and right, cursing incessantly. AI, a mother of asterisk cur. AI. The shaking became even more violent. Lei Xingfeng muttered to himself, "It's at least a magnitude 8 or 9 earthquake." Jean Depang didn't hear Lei Xingfeng's words clearly. He asked what? Lei Xingfeng naturally wouldn't explain what an earthquake was. He said, "It seems like the whole world is shaking. I don't know why." He didn't believe that the earthquake was caused by the collapse of a small village. A beam of light shone down. In an instant, Lei Xingfeng and the others were shocked to find that the whole world had color. The 4 of them stared blankly. They all felt like they were in a dream. It was as if the lost color had suddenly returned. At this moment, they could see that the rising smoke also had color. After a full 10 minutes, the smoke and dust finally settled. The whole world reappeared in front of them. It was completely different from the world they saw before. From black, white, and gray to color. It only took 10 minutes, but Lei Xingfeng and the others were incomparably shocked. Chapter 365. Jean Depang said, Did I do this? This is 2F asterisk King Spectacular. He felt great about himself. Xian Feng raised his head to look at the sky. That ray of light had already spread out. The originally light gray sky was now a clear blue. The ground was now black and dark brown. Even the collapsed village had regained its normal color and was no longer gray. Everyone felt a slight chill on their faces. Lei Xingfeng touched his face and said, "It's raining." Extremely fine raindrops fell from the sky. No one knew where the rain came from. There were no clouds in the sky, but the drizzle continued to fall. It felt even more strange. Jean Depang spread out his hands and said, "What a strange rain." Lei Xingfeng said, "All right, let's continue. I don't believe that we can't find anything valuable." He was also starting to get angry. 2 villages had completely collapsed. There were almost no clues or information to be found. He couldn't figure out where this place was or what was here. Of course, he was unhappy. The 4 still didn't dare to fly. This place was too strange. With Lei Xingfeng's experience, flying was definitely not a good choice. There were too many ways to attack. If he was a monarch, he would have dared to fly. However, his current strength was not enough. It was too easy to die. They ran forward. The 4 were followed by 6 silver puppets. They also ran forward, but their speed was slightly slower than Lei Xingfeng's group. While running, Lei Xingfeng said, "Why do I feel that there's a kind of temptation in the distance? Do you guys feel it?" Jean Dias said, "I don't feel anything. No, I feel a bit threatened. It's very faint." Jean Depang's fat body didn't hinder his running speed. In fact, his running speed was not slower than the others. This guy's strength was not bad. He said, "I don't feel anything." Tiger Love said, "Yes, old Jean is right. I also feel threatened. There doesn't seem to be any temptation." He was also a bit confused. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly and said, "Strange. This feeling is getting stronger. It seems to be calling me over." Jean Dai's expression changed slightly. "A trap?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "No, it doesn't look like a trap. I don't understand either." Jean Depang laughed and said, "Then let's go and take a look. Anyway, there's a human puppet here. What's there to be afraid of?" Blackbird said, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" Jean Depang was baffled. "What do you mean?" Lei Xingfeng laughed. As soon as he heard the words, "What's there to be afraid of?" he knew that Blackbird would definitely not be able to hold back. Blackbird often automatically put other people's words on his head. This was the so-called "take a seat." Blackbird said angrily, "What do you mean I'm afraid of him? I'm the only bird here." Jean Depang staggered and almost fell to the ground. He tried his best to stabilize his body and couldn't help but curse, "Blackbird! Are you crazy? The blackbird said. You're the one who's sick. Lei Xingfeng helplessly shook his head and said, All right, stop arguing. Shut up. Jean Depeng muttered. Ridiculous. Blackbird also muttered, Damn you, fatty. Jean Depeng was also helpless. Blackbird was usually good and silent, but when he didn't know what was wrong, he would have a poisonous tongue. Except for Lei Xingfeng, everyone else was his target. Lei Xingfeng, however, was thinking about something else. Just the fact that the monochrome world had suddenly turned into a colorful world was definitely strange. Until now, he still couldn't figure out the reason or what kind of world this was. This place was obviously different from the outside world, and it wasn't a place like the starry sky. It was a little like a secret space, but it was impossible for the outside world to have a secret space. It was formed by the rules. The secret space couldn't be moved because it was attached to the outside world. The outside world was just a small world, so it was impossible for it to have a secret space. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng couldn't come up with an answer even after thinking about it for a long time. The only thing he could think of now was to try his best to find clues and find an answer. The 4 people and 6 humanoid beasts ran forward. The ground was wet from the rain, so there was no more smoke and dust. Their heavy footsteps could be heard far away. Lei Xingfeng suddenly stopped and looked around in shock. He said, Did you notice anything different? Jean Depeng asked, What's different? He didn't respond for a moment. Instead, it was Tiger Love who said in surprise, The ground is sprouting. Jean Depeng was also shocked. It's true. Look at the ground. There are countless sprouts. Oh my God, what's going on? Jean Depeng squatted down and looked carefully. Sure enough, the sprouts were growing out of the ground at an extremely fast speed. The rain had only been falling for a few minutes, but the ground was already covered in faint green spots. Lei Xingfeng said, There's wind. The wind and rain appeared, and the color returned. The world seemed to have come back to life. When the green sprouts came out of the ground, the whole earth was thriving. The 4 people were a little dumbfounded as they stared blankly at the ground. This change was not only big, but also very fast. Jean Depeng said, What a strange feeling. It's like it's coming back to life. Lei Xingfeng clapped his hands hard and said, Yes, it's like it's coming back to life. It seems like it's been dead for a long time and has turned into ashes. Is this because we came in? As he spoke, the ground was already covered with tender green plants. Originally, there was only an extremely small bud, but now it had already grown to at least an inch long. Moreover, it was densely packed, as if the entire ground was covered with a green carpet. Jean Depeng pointed into the distance and said, It's all green. Oh my God, it's incredible. Jean Depeng said, I can't say for sure about other things, but there's definitely a treasure in this place. As for what kind of treasure, I don't know. Tiger Love said, Look carefully. I believe we can find it. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, I think we can find it too. This world is too strange. Hee hee, it really makes me curious. Jean Depeng said, Forget about it. Let's keep going. The group continued to run forward. About half an hour later, the whole earth began to shake violently. They immediately stopped and looked at it in bewilderment. Jean Depeng said, What the hell is going on? Why is the earth shaking again? Lei Xingfeng said, I don't know. Let's be careful. Other than Jean Depeng, who couldn't stand steadily, the others hovered a foot above the ground and looked around. Tiger Love suddenly said, What's that? He pointed behind him and asked. Lei Xingfeng and the others turned around and saw several black figures in the distance, heading towards Lei Xingfeng's group. Jean Depeng said, People, beasts, or something else. Lei Xingfeng's eyes were sharp. He said in disbelief, Puppet beasts? Puppet beasts. These puppet beasts are different from the ones we've seen before. There were a total of 7 puppet beasts. They were completely different from the silver and gold gray puppet beasts Lei Xingfeng had collected. They were obviously crudely made, larger in size and different in shape. Lei Xingfeng's silver gray puppet beast had a wolf head with 2 extra horns. The gold gray puppet beast had a tiger head with 2 horns as well. The mannequin that was running toward them had a beast head as well, but it looked more like a bear's head. It also had horns, but instead of 2 curved horns, it was a single horn that shone with a cold light. It was obvious that it was used as a weapon. He was also wearing armor made of steel. It could be seen that it was extremely thick and heavy, but it was already covered in rust. He held a long, double-edged axe in his hand. The sound of his running was dull and powerful. The rumbling sound was shocking. After counting carefully, there were a total of 7 puppet beasts. They were all 3 meters tall and had an intimidating aura. Compared to Lei Xingfeng's puppet beast, it was like comparing a hammer to a claw hammer. The two were completely different in size. Even the silver-grade puppet beasts were slightly smaller in size. Lei Xingfeng waved his hand and said, "Go." He ordered the silver-grade puppet beasts to charge. The 6 silver-grade puppet beasts received the order and immediately rushed forward. Jindia laughed and said, "Haha, now we can save a lot of energy. With the puppet beasts, we don't have to participate in many battles anymore." Lei Xingfeng looked on nervously. These puppet beasts were his treasures. If they would be lost, he would be heartbroken. When the 2 puppet beasts collided, the outcome of the battle was decided in an instant. The silver-grade puppet beasts almost instantly killed its opponent. The remaining puppet beast did not have much resistance and was smashed into pieces by the 6 silver-grade puppet beasts. This was not the main point. The main point was that the 6 puppet beasts picked up the broken puppet beast's weapon at the same time. It was a huge double-edged axe with a long handle. Lei Xingfeng immediately understood that the silver-grade puppet beasts chose to use it to save energy. Using their fists and legs to attack was too inefficient. If they had weapons, they could save a lot of energy. One of the silver-grade puppet beasts picked up 2 long double-edged axes and came in front of Lei Xingfeng. It threw one of the axes in front of Lei Xingfeng. Xian Feng laughed as he shook his head, thinking, "This fellow is very smart. He even knew to leave his weapon with me." He extended his hand and kept the double-edged axe into his hidden Lun space. "Let's go. There are puppet beasts here. Could this be a forbidden area?" Jindia laughed bitterly. "Forbidden area? I have never seen any forbidden area, so I can't give you any advice." The 7 puppet beasts were all smashed into pieces and scattered on the ground. Lei Xingfeng glanced at them and knew that there was no collection value. He said, "This thing seems to be made of steel and is already rusted. There is no chance of winning against the silver-grade puppet beasts. The silver-grade puppet beasts are too strong." Lei Xingfeng said, "It seems that we are close to the key area, or else these puppet beasts wouldn't appear. And I guess they could be considered as steel puppet beasts." Jindia said, "Almost everything has decayed. So how could there be steel humanoid beasts here? Unbelievable." Lei Xingfeng said, "There should be more than this. If there are only a few of them, then it's fine. But if there are a lot of them, then it will be troublesome. Let's move forward carefully." The group continued to move forward. From time to time, they would encounter steel puppet beasts. Sometimes there were 2 or 3, sometimes there were 6 or 7. At most, there were 11 steel puppet beasts, but they were all destroyed by the 6 silver-grade puppet beasts. Lei Xingfeng and the rest did not make a move. Chapter 366. Along the way, Xian Feng spoke. "I've observed that the strength of a steel puppeteer is around the strength of a 1st to 4th ringed true sage, and there's a huge difference in energy. Adding on time, if a steel puppeteer is full of energy and in perfect condition, it should be able to reach the strength of a 7th or 8th ringed true sage. Not bad." Jindia smiled. "I can easily take down 7 or 8 of them. It'll be hard to take down 10 of them." Jindia said, "Yeah, I can take on 2 of them. Maybe I can take on a few more." After all, a cultivator had many tricks up their sleeves. The steel puppeteers only had one method of attack, which was to use weapons to attack. Tiger Love said, "Is that a wall?" "A wall?" Lei Xingfeng looked up and said, "It should be a wall, right?" He wasn't sure. The 4 of them quickly got closer and saw a shocking scene. A metal wall with a steel mannequin beast every 5 meters. The walls on both sides of the wall stretched as far as the eye could see, and the wall was over 30 meters tall. When Xian Feng and the others got closer, holes appeared on the wall, and rows of steel mannequins walked out from them. These steel puppeteers quickly formed a team. Lei Xingfeng looked around and said in shock, "There are at least 500 steel puppeteers." Tiger Love said calmly, "Wrong. There are more than 500. They're still gathering. We can't wait anymore. Either we retreat or attack. We'll fight our way in." Lei Xingfeng said, "Retreat." He didn't know what was going on behind the wall. Of course, he wouldn't be stupid enough to attack. The four of them took the 6 silver puppeteers and ran out quickly. Boom, boom, boom. When the steel dolls began to run, the ground began to rumble. These things were too heavy. When they stepped on the ground, heavy footsteps could be heard. And when hundreds of steel dolls ran together, the ground seemed to explode with each step they took. Lei Xingfeng looked back as he ran. Jean Depang said, "Why not?" Jean Dia couldn't help but scold. "Idiot, if we fight under the wall, they'll keep coming out. Are you trying to tire us to death?" Jean Depang immediately understood. He had spent a lot more time thinking about food than fighting, so he was relatively unfamiliar with fighting. In his opinion, no matter who the enemy was, as long as they could sit down and eat the delicious food he cooked, then they would definitely turn into friends. No one could resist his food. Of course, he threw this thought away as far as he could from the steel puppeteers. Once they started fighting, they would probably be beaten to a pulp, let alone eat. They ran very fast. In just a few moments, they were already far away from the wall. Lei Xingfeng calculated that it was about time. He shouted and commanded the silver puppeteers to attack. He didn't expect the 6 silver puppeteers to be able to kill the 500 steel puppeteers. He raised his hand and released another 30 silver puppeteers. He had a total of 36 silver puppeteers. This time, he released all of them. After all, the enemy's numbers were too great. Fortunately, they were all using weapons. If they used skills, they probably wouldn't be able to take it. Fortunately, the gold puppeteers only used physical attacks. Only the gold puppeteers had some long-range skills. However, their main attack method was still physical. The 36 silver puppeteers naturally formed a large circular formation, protecting Lei Xingfeng and the others as they waited for the enemy to attack. 7 of the silver puppeteers had long double-edged axes, while the others were empty-handed. Lei Xingfeng originally wanted to equip them with weapons, but he discovered that the enemy was only interested in the steel puppeteers' weapons. As for the weapons he gave them, they were all thrown to the ground. Lei Xingfeng was speechless. The momentum of 600 steel puppeteers charging together was very frightening. Even seasoned experts like Jean Dia and Tiger Love felt incomparably pressured. However, the silver puppeteers didn't move at all. They quietly waited, incomparably calm. Thinking about it, they weren't humans, but mechanical weapons. It was unrealistic to expect them to feel fear. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the steel puppeteers at the very front rammed into them. In an instant, the 36 silver puppeteers began to spin rapidly. Their speed was simply unparalleled. Lei Xingfeng and the others saw shadows flashing past their eyes. Those were the afterimages created by the silver puppeteers' rapid movements. A thunderous explosion followed by violent crackling sounds and the sound of the steel puppeteers shattering. Lei Xingfeng and the others stood in the center of the circle, dumbfounded as they watched the silver puppeteers madly attack. Although there were many steel puppeteers, their speed was relatively slow. How could they be as fast and accurate as the silver puppeteers? Sparks flew everywhere as steel clashed. Lei Xingfeng said in shock, "If it were us, we would be quickly overwhelmed by the steel puppeteers. Unless we flew, we wouldn't be able to escape." The battle lasted for half an hour. When the last steel doll was grabbed by the ankle, it smashed it into the ground. In just 2 hits, the steel doll was smashed into smithereens. The ground was littered with steel fragments and a large number of double-edged axes. The silver puppeteers didn't wait for Lei Xingfeng's command. They picked up their axes and automatically equipped themselves with weapons. They even placed the double-edged axes at Lei Xingfeng's feet. Their meaning was clear. They wanted him to put them away. Lei Xingfeng found it funny. These silver puppeteers seemed to know what they were doing. Jean Dia laughed. "What clever fellows." Jean Depang said, "It's a pity there aren't enough of them." If there were 500 of them, we could directly kill our way into the city walls. Lei Xingfeng said, "Stop dreaming. If it weren't for my good luck, I wouldn't have been able to get so many silver puppeteers." Tiger Love looked at the fragments on the ground and said, "What a pity. What a pity for these silver puppeteers." Xian Feng laughed bitterly. "It's hard to tame these mannequin beasts. The steel mannequin beasts here are very different from the silver mannequin beasts. It seems like the mannequin beasts here are more ancient." Jean Dia smiled bitterly and said, "Although we have silver mannequins, there's simply too many of them. 600 steel mannequins came out of nowhere. If there were tens of thousands of them, we would probably have to run." Lei Xingfeng thought about the silver puppeteers rushing at them and felt a chill in his heart. He said, "Let's take it one step at a time. We'll lure them bit by bit and then destroy them bit by bit. One day, we'll be able to exhaust them." Jean Dia said, "Okay, let's do it again. Depang, step back. This time, don't follow us to lure the enemy." Jean Depang also knew he was a burden. He nodded and said, "Okay, I'll leave first. I'll go prepare some food. When you're tired, you can come and rest." Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh. "You're a glutton. Okay, I agree with this method. Keep it simple. Don't make it too complicated. Of course, delicious food is a must." Jean Depang left in high spirits and ran off to a faraway place to cook. Originally, he was a bit unwilling, but now he had long forgotten about it. He was thinking about what to cook for dinner. As for the battle, it would be best if he could avoid it. Lei Xingfeng laughed. "This time, Uncle Tiger is going to lure the enemy with 8 silver puppeteers. Right now, we can only lure them bit by bit. If it weren't for the silver puppeteers, we wouldn't be able to afford it." Jean Dia said, "This time, let's go all out and destroy as many of these steel puppeteers as possible." Lei Xingfeng nodded. "Okay, let's lure the steel puppeteers out and destroy them. Then we can enter the city walls. I want to see what this place is and why it's so strange." Tiger Love ran over with the silver puppeteers. Jean Dia said, "I wonder how many steel puppeteers we can lure this time." Lei Xingfeng said, "It shouldn't be too many." Just now, the 4 of them and 6 silver puppeteers attracted more than 600 steel puppeteers. This time, there was only 1 person and 8 silver puppeteers, so the number of steel puppeteers attracted shouldn't be much more than before. Moments later, the sound of rumbling footsteps could be heard. Lei Xingfeng and Jean Dia looked at each other, a trace of surprise in their eyes. This was because the sound was too loud, much louder than before. Then they saw Tiger Love running at the front, with 8 silver puppeteers behind him. Behind them were the steel puppeteers. Lei Xingfeng said, "Holy sh*T. How many steel puppeteers are there?" Jean Dia was also shocked. He said, "Holy sh*T, at least 1,000. This is crazy, it's doubled. A phone, do we fight or run?" Lei Xingfeng hesitated for a moment, then said, "Where can we run to?" "Fight." Jean Dia laughed bitterly and said, "All right, I'll do my best." He wasn't confident. There were too many steel puppeteers, so many that he couldn't attack. This was the so-called human wave tactic. For this, Xian Feng released a gold-level mannequin beast. Jean Dia knew that Lei Xingfeng had 3 gold puppeteers. He asked, "Why don't you release all of them?" Lei Xingfeng laughed bitterly. "That thing consumes a lot of energy. Gold puppeteers required sky evolution crystals. This thing was too precious, and he really couldn't bear to use it." As they spoke, Tiger Love had already flown back. The 8 silver puppeteers quickly returned to the formation, forming a large circular formation. This time, each silver puppet held a long, double-edged axe in its hand, staring at the steel puppeteers that were charging over. Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to fly into the air, so he said, "Lift me up." The gold puppet quickly lifted Lei Xingfeng up and let him step on its shoulders. When the steel puppeteers were about to crash into the circular defensive formation, he roared, and Lei Yin flew out of his body. In an instant, countless electric currents shot out. The dazzling light made Jean Dia and Tiger Love squint their eyes. The electric currents hit the steel puppeteers, creating a series of crackling sounds. Electric arcs jumped wildly on their bodies, and in an instant, the steel puppeteers that were originally charging wildly lost their footing. The steel puppeteers that weren't affected by the electric currents behind them were still charging wildly. Suddenly, there was a series of explosions, and the entire current of steel puppeteers was in chaos. Chapter 367. At the same time, the silver puppets launched their attacks. 3 silver puppet beasts suddenly cut into the group of steel puppet beasts. They swung their long, double-edged axes at high speed, and the sound of metal clashing could be heard. Instantly, another 3 silver puppet beasts rushed in, and the previous 3 silver puppet beasts had already retreated. The whole circle spun rapidly, and the 3 silver puppet beasts continued to cut into the steel puppet beasts. Like a small knife peeling off a layer of skin, the steel puppet beasts were quickly shaved off. Lei Xingfeng kept sending out electric currents. He couldn't break the steel puppets, but the powerful electric currents could slow down their movements and reduce their attack power quickly. This would disrupt the formation of the steel puppets. He even used the chaos wheel from time to time. Once the chaos wheel was used, the steel puppets couldn't withstand it. One hit was enough to shatter a steel puppet into pieces. Tiger Love and Jean Dia didn't make a move. They just stood on both sides of the gold puppets. It wasn't that they didn't want to fight, but that they couldn't. The circular formation formed by the silver puppets was spinning too fast. If they rushed in recklessly, they would be hit by the silver puppets, which would destroy the entire attack formation. This time, the steel puppets were twice as many as the previous ones. They looked like they were covering the sky and the earth. One had to know that thousands of steel puppets were huge. When they surrounded and attacked, even Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but tremble. That was why he couldn't help but attack. Jean Dia saw a glimmer of hope. He said, "This batch of steel puppets are weaker than the previous batch." Tiger Love was also observing. He said, "That's right. I even found a few steel puppets that were missing arms and metal armor. Hee, if they were brand new steel puppets, even if we can win, those silver puppets would be damaged." Jean Dia said, "We won't necessarily suffer losses, but there's a chance that the steel mannequins will charge in and the entire formation won't be able to maintain." Lei Xingfeng stood on the gold puppet beast's shoulder and stared at the steel puppet beasts. From time to time, he would release the chaos wheel. A silver light would flash and instantly destroy a steel puppet beast. He would sometimes use the chaos wheel, and sometimes he would use violent lightning to help the silver puppet beasts maintain a perfect formation. This prevented the steel puppet beasts from concentrating their power and forcefully attacking. In just a few moments, the ground was filled with broken steel puppet beasts. An hour later, more than 1,000 steel humanoid beasts were all destroyed. Lei Xingfeng did a quick check and found that he had no choice but to use the Heaven Divination Crystal to replenish the energy he had expended. The silver humanoid puppet was originally full of energy, but after 2 battles, it had expended nearly a quarter of its energy. This made Lei Xingfeng's heart ache. With so much energy, it was equivalent to using the Heaven Divination Crystal to open a secret door and make a trip to outer space. Looking at the broken metal parts on the ground, Lei Xingfeng said, "What a pity. If only I knew how to collect these steel puppet beasts, then I would have profited greatly. They're the best cannon fodder. If one had steel puppet beasts while exploring the outside world, they could use them in dangerous places. Even if they were destroyed, one wouldn't feel any pain." However, everyone knew that this mission was too difficult. As long as the steel puppet beasts had energy, it would be extremely difficult to capture and unravel their secrets. During the battle just now, Lei Xingfeng had discovered that once the limbs were broken, the steel puppet beasts would rapidly disintegrate into a pile of useless parts. There was no way to capture them completely. Jean Dia shook his head. "There's no way to capture them." Tiger Love said, "It doesn't matter if we capture them or not. The main thing is to figure out what secrets are hidden here. I've always been curious. The changes here are simply too miraculous." At this time, the green sprouts on the ground had already grown. Some of them had even grown to a foot tall. At a glance, It was overflowing with spring. How long had it been? The plants here could actually grow to such an extent. It was simply inconceivable to the extreme. Lei Xingfeng said, "No matter what, we have to figure out the situation here. I keep having the feeling that this place is related to the outer space. In fact, this place is even more ancient than the outer space. From the looks of these steel puppet beasts seem even simpler than the ones I obtained from the Forbidden Area. They seem to be the earliest steel puppet beasts, while our steel puppet beasts are the upgraded versions. The materials used, the energy used, and the design concept of the silver puppet beasts were much better than the steel puppet beasts. As for the gold puppet beasts, they were even more powerful. This was something that Lei Xingfeng understood very well. Tiger Love said, "Should I go and lure the enemy again?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head. "Let's go and rest for a while and eat something while we're at it." Jean Dia laughed. "With Fatty here, there will always be good food to eat. Let's go, I'm hungry too." Lei Xingfeng put away the gold puppet beasts and the 30 silver puppet beasts, leaving only 6 silver puppet beasts as guards. He had always been very careful about this and always kept enough guards outside. This place was simply too strange. Without a certain level of protection, he would feel uneasy. The three of them walked to the back and soon saw Jean Depeng busying himself. This fellow had placed a large table on the ground, 3 chairs, and a large copper pot. He was using oil wood to cook a large pot of mixed vegetables. This was Lei Xingfeng's favorite cooking method. It was simple and delicious, and Jean Depeng had long since learned it and carried it forward. Jean Depeng laughed. "Good fella. I'm still cooking and I can already hear the rumbling. Did you win?" Tiger Love laughed. "Nonsense. If we couldn't win, would we have been able to come over?" Lei Xingfeng said, "We were in for a good fight. If it weren't for the gold puppet beasts, we wouldn't have been able to do anything." He knew very well that with the strength of the 4 of them, they could only run away from the first wave of 600 steel puppet beasts. If they were to fight head-on, they would probably be beaten to a pulp. Jean Depeng laughed. "We'll fight after we're full." Tiger Love said, "Mixed vegetables, hee, I like it." There is no one who didn't like this dish, especially since Jean Depeng had improved it a bit. For example, the pot they were currently cooking was dry roasted mixed vegetables. The so-called dry roasting was to add a small amount of water and oil. The oil Jean Depeng used was divided into vegetable oil and animal fat, which were mixed together and heated up. Then fist-sized pieces of meat were added. This was something Jean Depeng had experimented with long ago. He had matched the ratio of fresh meat to salted meat. After the garlic and ginger were fried, the meat was added. Then, all kinds of vegetables and mushrooms were placed on the fire to dry roast. When the aroma overflowed from the lid, the dish was almost ready. Of course, this was only the first step. They could start eating. Halfway through the meal, they had to fill the pot with water and continue cooking. At the same time, they had to add some vegetables, salted meat, and even dried shrimps to make a pot of vegetable soup. According to Jean Depeng's instructions, this was like eating 2 dishes of mixed vegetables. They would eat the dry one first, then the soup one. The mixed vegetables were served with sesame seed cakes, which were made by Jean Depeng at home. The duck oil sesame seed cake was absolutely delicious. The palm-sized sesame seed cake was crispy, fragrant, and salty. It was not only Jean Depeng's favorite, but also Lei Xingfeng's favorite. A large pot of duck oil sesame seed cake was placed on the table. Jean Depeng took out a copper basin with charcoal and placed a fine steel wire mesh on it. After lighting the charcoal, he placed the sesame seed cake on the steel wire mesh to heat it up. Lei Xingfeng knew that the duck oil sesame seed cake had to be eaten hot. Otherwise, there would be a faint smell of duck. If it was hot, there would only be a strong fragrance. He picked up a piece of duck oil sesame seed cake and bit off half of it. After chewing a little, he couldn't help but cry out, "Good! Delicious!" This kind of duck oil sesame seed cake could be eaten in 2 bites. Coupled with the dry roasted meat, the taste was indescribable. It was simply too wonderful. Jean Depeng and Tiger Love ate to their heart's content. While eating the sesame seed cake, Jean Depeng said, This sesame seed cake was taught to me by a phone. For the sake of the duck oil used in the sesame seed cake, I specially found people to raise several thousand ducks. Last time, I had to go to senior brother Tung Yuan to get a batch of sesame seeds, which he found in the outside world. This duck oil sesame seed cake really cost me a lot of effort. Tiger Love said, "It's very worth it. This taste is better than any other cake." The blackbird finally digested the 3 lightning bolts. It stretched its head out from under its wings and said in a daze, "I'm hungry too." Lei Xingfeng said, "Fatty, bring a plate of raw meat." Jean Depeng nodded and said, "No problem." He casually cut a plate of fresh meat and put it on a wooden plate. He handed it to Lei Xingfeng and said, "There's also some wild beef. It's all tenderloin. It should be delicious." For the blackbird, delicious food was secondary. The meat it wanted the most was the meat of an astral beast or a ferocious beast. The last thing it wanted was ordinary meat, such as beef or chicken. It might be delicious, but it wouldn't be of any help to it. The blackbird's red eyes stared at Jean Depeng and said, "Do you have a grudge against this bird?" Jean Depeng was shocked. He said, "What's wrong with you?" The blackbird said, "Why are you giving me this garbage?" Jean Depeng was speechless. He said, "I don't have anything else for you to eat. Of course, if you want to eat, then eat. If you don't want to eat, then forget it." Even a person made of clay would have some temper. He was also unhappy. "You're not my bird. Why should I coax you?" The blackbird suddenly exploded. It said, "Ga? You're a bad person. Ga." Lei Xingfeng sighed and said, "This bird has been raised by me. Bird Bude, make do with it." The blackbird raised its small head and said, "Ga, I don't want to eat." Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, forget it if you don't want to eat. Fatty, put away this plate of meat." Jean Depeng stretched out his hand, and the plate of meat disappeared. Suddenly, the blackbird went crazy. It cried, "Ga, Ga. You can't do this. Ga." Lei Xingfeng said indifferently, "It's you who don't want to eat. It's not like I don't want to give it to you." "Strange." The blackbird cried, "It's not that I don't want to eat, but I don't want to eat this kind of garbage. I want to eat star beast meat." Lei Xingfeng suddenly laughed. He said, "Listen, everyone, listen to this bird. It wants to eat star beast meat. Holy sh*t. What is the meat of an astral beast? That thing is an extremely precious tonic. Even a true monarch may not be able to eat it. You're just a bird, and you want to eat star beast meat. Even in your dreams, you can't do this. Stand aside, I'll give you shit." The blackbird wailed and said, Grandpa, you can't abuse your bird." Chapter 368. Lei Xingfeng opened his eyes wide and said, "What did you say? That was too unpleasant to hear. I'm abusing my bird? What the F***ck is that?" The blackbird said, "Your bird is a good bird." Hearing this, Jean Dia, Tiger Love, and Jean Depeng's faces all changed. They all tried to keep a straight face and silently looked at the duck oil sesame seed cake in a wooden basin. Then their bodies began to tremble. Lei Xingfeng scolded, "Bastard! Shut up. If you say any more nonsense, I'll roast you." The blackbird still didn't react and continued to wail, "You can't bully a bird like this. It's not easy for a bird to live, quack. Really, it's your good bird. What a big bird." Puffed. Jean Dia finally managed to hold back his laughter. However, Jean Depeng and Shirhu couldn't hold it in any longer and burst into laughter. Tiger Love kept shaking his head and laughing wildly. "Good bird. Ha ha. Phone, your bird is a good bird, ha ha ha." Jean Depeng laughed until his knees went weak. He sat on the ground and laughed until his belly was under the table. He held his stomach and laughed wildly, saying one word after another, "Bird, ha, good bird, ha ha, big bird, wah." Jean Dia was so amused by the two that he couldn't hold back and suddenly laughed wildly. Lei Xingfeng's face turned green. If this guy doesn't know how to talk, then don't talk. This is too embarrassing. The blackbird was unconvinced and said, "Quack, what's so funny? You're crazy. Big bird, what's so funny? Bird Bude is not only a big bird, It's also a big black bird. Lei Xingfeng was dumbfounded. A big black bird? What the F asterisk CK? Does this damn bird know what it's saying? Jean Dia and the other two laughed like crazy. Jean Depeng laughed so hard that bubbles came out of his nose and his saliva sprayed far away. A bolt of lightning shot out from Lei Xingfeng's shoulder and hit the blackbird directly. The black bird trembled and said, "Mama, bird hasn't eaten yet. Jie Lala." Ma, Lei Xingfeng said indifferently. "It's no use even if you call for your mother." The blackbird trembled like a withered leaf in the wind and said, "That's not Mama, that's Ma. Aya, so annoying. You're bullying me again." Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "Who asked you to be so restless? It's good to be honest. Why do you have such a request?" The blackbird felt wronged and said, "The bird just wants to eat something delicious. Is there a need to bully the bird like that?" Lei Xingfeng thought about it and agreed. Although this bird was noisy, it still performed well at crucial moments. He took out a piece of astral beast meat that was as long as a finger and said, "Just one piece. I don't have any more." The blackbird caught it in its mouth and swallowed it quickly. It even muttered, "I knew it. Master is the best. Caw-caw." Although it wasn't much, it was still satisfied. It now deeply understood how difficult it was to get a piece of astral beast meat. Jean Depeng wiped his tears and said, "I'm dying of laughter. This bird is too funny." The blackbird ate a mouthful of astral beast meat and immediately became spirited. This thing was indeed very nutritious, especially for the blackbird. It said, "You're dying of laughter? Why don't you die? Damn fatty. You're pissing me off." The blackbird exploded again. Jean Depeng wouldn't get angry with a bird. After quarreling so many times, he knew that if he got angry, the bird would be happy. Therefore, everyone around Lei Xingfeng knew that this blackbird was a tortoise. It wouldn't let go once it bit down. "I can't be bothered with you." Jean Depeng flipped the duck oil sesame seed cake on the wire net and drank the thick soup. The blackbird helped Lei Xingfeng comb his hair and said, "Master, let this bird rest for a day." "Caw." Lei Xingfeng said, "Up to you. Think about it yourself." The blackbird cawed twice proudly and didn't say anything else. There was one thing that the blackbird understood very well. It was only when everyone was idle that they could bicker. Even if it made people unhappy, it wasn't a big problem. However, during critical moments, such as during a battle, it was best not to talk or do anything. Because the blackbird was very tactful, no one disliked its existence. A blackbird that could talk could bring joy to everyone in their leisure time, especially a blackbird with such personality. The three of them were very satisfied with the meal. Even Lei Xingfeng praised Jean Depeng's cooking. It was definitely better than what he made in his previous life. Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's continue." The three of them brought the 6 silver tier beast puppets back to the place where the previous battle took place. Jean Dia said, "I'll do it this time." He led the 6 silver tier beast puppets and ran towards the city wall. Lei Xingfeng and Tiger Love waited in place. Of course, Lei Xingfeng still released 30 silver tier beast puppets. They were now his best weapon for group fights. He didn't release the gold tier beast puppets for the time being. Once they were activated, they would consume a lot of energy. He was a little reluctant to use the Heaven Divination Crystal. Once the Heaven Divination Crystal was used up, these gold tier beast puppets would be useless. Soon, the rumbling of footsteps could be heard. Tiger Love said, "They're here." Lei Xingfeng was stunned. "What the F asterisk CK? What is this?" Tiger Love was also stunned. He stared at the gold tier beast puppets in the distance and said, "Why are they all swaying?" "Ugh." Jean Dia returned with the 6 silver tier beast puppets. He said, "I think all the gold tier beast puppets that can move are here. Haha, they're all crooked." There were about 2,000 steel beast puppets, and their clanking noises were accompanied by heavy footsteps. Along the way, there were also countless steel beast puppets lying on the ground. As they walked, they stopped moving. Only a few hundred steel beast puppets were able to catch up. Without waiting for Lei Xingfeng's orders, the 36 silver tier beast puppets attacked. This spontaneous attack was due to the remnant orders from the last time. With the strength of the 36 silver tier beast puppets, they quickly destroyed the gold tier beast puppets that pounced on them. Lei Xingfeng, Tiger Love, and Jean Dia didn't make a move. They quietly watched as the gold tier beast puppets were destroyed. There were still some gold tier beast puppets that came over with difficulty. Some had broken arms, and some had broken legs. Even if they were crawling, they still persevered. Jean Dia said, "This should be the last batch. They're all trash." Tiger Love said, "Yes, I saw the situation on the city wall. Those that can move are all here. Those that can't move might never move." Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's go take a look. Let Fatty come with us." Jean Dia shouted a few times, and Jean Depang ran over. When they arrived at the city wall again, Lei Xingfeng looked up and saw that there were still countless gold tier beast puppets standing on top of the city wall. Because they were a little far away, he couldn't see the details clearly. However, one thing was very clear. These gold tier beast puppets couldn't move. Lei Xingfeng flew up the wall. In an instant, he was standing on top of the city wall. Only then did he realize that the gold tier beast puppets standing on top of the city wall had all rusted away. Jean Dia said, "There's a short tower over there." Lei Xingfeng said, "That's a pile of destroyed buildings. Only this short tower is still standing. I think it used to have a spire." Tiger Love said, "Let's go take a look." I'm looking forward to it." The four of them quickly ran towards the short tower. Lei Xingfeng's heart was just as Tiger Love had said. He was looking forward to it. A few minutes later, the four of them stood under the short tower. Only then did they realize that the short tower was completely made of metal. However, it was already covered in rust, and a strong smell of rust assaulted their nostrils. They could clearly see that there were some metal components left behind by the surrounding collapsed buildings. The other parts had been completely turned into ashes. Looking carefully, they could even see the roads hidden in the ruins. These roads were also made of metal, but they were almost completely rusted away. It was very difficult to see the whole picture. This was a very large residential area, but it was basically completely destroyed. They could see very few metal buildings still standing, but most of them were rotten beyond recognition. Only the short tower was still standing due to its huge size. Jean Depang was puzzled. Why are there still so many mobile steel humanoid beasts on the city walls? Tiger Love said, "Those should be the steel humanoid beasts sealed in the city walls. According to my estimation, if they were intact, we wouldn't be facing just a few thousand steel humanoid beasts. It's very likely that there would be tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of them. Moreover, there should be differences in their professions. I saw a steel humanoid beast holding a rusted longbow." Jean Dia added, "Yeah, I also saw a steel humanoid beast holding shield. Unfortunately, only half of the shield is left. Lei Xingfeng had long since noticed this. He knew very well that there was an extremely powerful steel humanoid beast army here. If there was someone to command them, they would be completely finished. Even if he took out 3 gold humanoid beasts, it would still be the same. The enemy would just use numbers to swallow them up. This short tower should be very important." Lei Xingfeng guessed. Jean Dia rubbed his chin and pondered. After a while, he said, "Why are you thinking so much? Let's just go in and take a look." Lei Xingfeng said, "That's true. All right, let's go in. Let's see where the door is." Tiger Love had already circled around. He said, "No way." Lei Xingfeng was stunned. "No way? Holy sh*t. Let's go to the top of the short tower." Although it was called a short tower, it was still 50 to 60 meters tall. Therefore, it was impossible to see the top from the bottom. Lei Xingfeng leaped up and reached the top in an instant. He smiled and said, "Sure enough, there is an entrance from the top." Because the building at the top had all disappeared, a small entrance was revealed. It was 2 meters long and wide. It was dark below, and nothing could be seen clearly. Lei Xingfeng turned around and pointed at a silver humanoid beast. "You go in." The silver humanoid beast jumped down without hesitation. There was a rumbling sound below, and then the footsteps became lighter and lighter. Lei Xingfeng knew that the silver humanoid beast had gone deep inside. Boom! The whole short tower shook, and then there was a continuous rumbling sound. Lei Xingfeng said, "Oh no, there is something below fighting with my humanoid beast. Let's go down." At this time, he couldn't care less. Although he had 36 silver humanoid beasts, he couldn't afford to lose even one. Jin Dia was very calm. He said, "Bring the others." Lei Xingfeng turned around and pointed at the entrance. "Go down and help." The other 5 silver humanoid beasts jumped down. Lei Xingfeng followed closely behind. Chapter 369. Tiger Love jumped down as well. Jin Dia was a little late. He said, "Fatty, stay here," and jumped into the hole as well. Lei Xingfeng had already released Lei Yin. The surroundings were illuminated by Lei Yin's silver light. They were in a steel room. There was nothing inside except for a corridor in front of them. The sound came from there. This corridor was also a circular corridor. After walking around the periphery, they would enter the next floor. As Lei Xingfeng ran, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Back in the forbidden area, there was a tower that had the same structure. As soon as he reached the lower level, he saw the silver mannequin fighting with 2 steel mannequins. The 5 silver mannequins joined the fray and destroyed the 2 steel mannequins in an instant. Xian Feng was a bit shocked. These 2 steel mannequins were actually able to fight to a draw with a silver mannequin. This was simply inconceivable. He had always thought that a single steel mannequin was weak. He didn't expect it to be this strong. Jin Dia had already seen through the mystery. He said, "The steel puppets don't know how to cooperate, but the silver puppets have great teamwork. This is the biggest difference between the 2 sides." Lei Xingfeng agreed. Moreover, the steel puppets are relatively weaker. There were 2 steel puppets on this floor. The entire space was huge. Under the illumination of Lei Xingfeng's Lei Yin, they could see that this floor was at least 1,000 square meters. It was about 7 to 8 meters high. It was a huge space. Tiger Love said, "Just 2 steel puppets. There's nothing else." "No, there's a box over there." There were about 50 large boxes made of steel. Each of them was about 3 meters long, 1.5 meters high, and 2 meters wide. Xian Feng waved his hand, and the 6 silver rank mannequins lifted a gigantic chest and threw it down. With a loud bang, the gigantic chest was thrown down from a pile of chests. One of the silver puppets stepped forward and used his long axe to pry open the lid. Bang! Crack! The metal cover that was 1 centimeter thick was forcefully pried open and thrown away by the silver puppet beast. Lei Xingfeng then went forward to take a look. Jin Dia was 1 step ahead of him. He exclaimed in surprise, "Holy sh*T! This is the steel humanoid beast." He was so excited that he blurted out Lei Xingfeng's catchphrase. It was an undamaged steel humanoid beast. There was still a thick layer of grease on its body. It had basically dried up and formed yellowish-brown spots. Lei Xingfeng reached out and removed one of the yellowish-brown spots. Immediately, a metallic gleam was revealed. In other words, this was a brand new steel humanoid beast. On one side of the box was a holder with a metal longbow and a box of metal arrows. Each of these metal arrows was similar to a spear. Lei Xingfeng felt dizzy just looking at them. If he was not careful, even a 9th ring sage like him would not be able to handle it. This was 2F*King insane. After a careful count, there were a total of 53 large chests, each of which contained a steel mannequin beast. All of them were brand new, with no signs of being activated. Xian Feng happily kept them and spoke. "Let me slowly study them. With the example of the silver and gold mannequins, I believe that I'll be able to find the mystery behind them. Although he had destroyed countless steel humanoid beasts, they were all half-crippled and did not have enough energy. Just like the gold humanoid beast he had encountered before. It looked ordinary, but when it was fully charged, its strength was shocking. The steel humanoid beast should be slightly weaker, but under his control, the situation would be completely different. 53 steel mannequin beasts. This harvest made Xian Feng incomparably happy. This time in the avocado swamp, relying on the mannequin beasts, he could practically do whatever he wanted. The mannequin beasts were indeed very useful. Jean Diaz said, I wonder if there are more on the next level. Lei Xingfeng said, I hope there are as many as possible. He, Tiger Love, said, I'm just afraid that we can't find the energy to activate them. I wonder if the Yin rings can be used. Lei Xingfeng smiled. We can only go back and test it out. Jean Dia said emotionally, with so many steel humanoid beasts to help, whether it is exploring or building a home, they will be the best assistants. Lei Xingfeng shook his head. Building a home, that will be difficult. However, it is still possible to get them to help. It's just not worth it. The energy used and the results obtained are not equal unless I find a way to produce sky divination crystals. Jean Dia knew about sky divination crystals. He could not help but smile bitterly. Forget it. If we can produce sky divination crystals, we probably won't be able to keep our hidden sect. At that time, countless experts will come to force us. Lei Xingfeng said, the prerequisite is, I have to become a Dao Lord. Jean Dia and Tiger Love looked at each other. Both of them were shocked. After being in the hidden sect for a long time, they knew what being a Dao Lord meant. It meant a top-level hidden sect. This hidden sect was the strongest in the world. Tiger Love sighed. I hope I can live to see a phone become a Dao Lord. Haha, that's too difficult. Let's think about how to become a true Lord. We can't do anything about this. We can only count on a phone. Lei Xingfeng nodded. I've already started preparing. However, I still have some questions. I don't dare to advance so quickly. You know that I just reached the peak of 9th Ring Sage. I still need some time to adapt. Jean Dia nodded in understanding. He said, I reached the peak of 9th Ring a long time ago. Unfortunately, after so many years, I've become less and less confident. Until now, I've only been trying to prolong my life. Haha, I won't be able to become a true lord in this lifetime. What a pity. Tiger Love said, how can there be so many regrets? How many people can cultivate to 9th Ring Sage? Not even 1 out of 10 cultivators can reach the 9th ring. If it weren't for the Yin ring, you'd be at most a 3rd or 4th ring cultivator. You might not even be able to reach this level. Haha, you're already very lucky to have your current achievements. Jean Dia laughed bitterly. He knew that Tiger Love was right. He sighed. Sigh, I know. But when I see a genius like a phone, I still feel disappointed. Lei Xingfeng said, let's go. Haha, let's go to the next level. If there are more steel mannequins, we'll be rich. The 3 led the 6 silver mannequins to the next level. Of course, the 6 mannequins walked at the front. After a while, the 6 silver mannequins entered the next level. Then, they heard the sound of fighting. Lei Xingfeng walked in and saw the 6 silver mannequins beating the 4 steel mannequins. Everyone was holding a long, double-edged axe. They were competing to see who was stronger. The silver mannequins were obviously better. Every time they swung, the steel mannequins were forced back. Plus, the silver mannequins were good at teamwork. In just a few seconds, one of the steel mannequins was broken into pieces. Lei Xingfeng stopped paying attention to the battle and looked around to see if there were any treasures. This space was bigger than the previous level. Lei Xingfeng saw a row of steel mannequins. He couldn't help but laugh. There really are. Jean Dia said, look over there. Lei Xingfeng turned around and saw a row of steel mannequins sitting against the wall. However, they were all motionless. He said, they must have used up all their energy. Haha, we got lucky again. As he spoke, the 4 steel mannequins were cut into pieces. All kinds of metal pieces scattered on the ground. The 6 silver mannequins retreated to the side of the 3 in a protective formation. There were a total of 120 steel mannequins. They pried open one of the steel mannequins. However, they were equipped with metal shields and huge single-edged axes. The axes were very exaggerated. The blades were 1 meter long. The shields were also exaggerated. They were 2.5 meters tall and at least 4 centimeters thick. The edges of the shields were sharp. If they were swung, even a 9th Ring Sage wouldn't be able to block it. This time, Lei Xingfeng didn't open them one by one. Instead, he put them into his hidden Luin space. There were 6 steel mannequins sitting against the wall. They probably used up all their energy. However, their parts weren't rusted. It probably had something to do with the space of the short tower. It was very dry here. Lei Xingfeng also put away the 6 steel mannequins. He calculated that he had collected a total of 179 steel mannequins. It was a great harvest. Lei Xingfeng laughed. Continue, continue. Haha, it would be great if there were more. Jean Dias said, maybe this is a warehouse. It's used to store finished steel mannequins. Lei Xingfeng laughed. If that's the case, we're really rich. Haha, I didn't expect there to be steel mannequins outside of the forbidden area. Although they're not as good as the ones in the forbidden area, they're still very strong. The 6 silver mannequins led the way. The 3 of them followed behind and continued down the corridor. This time, they didn't encounter any steel mannequins. When Lei Xingfeng and the rest entered this floor, they found a large number of metal boxes. Lei Xingfeng, Tiger Love, and Jean Dia looked at each other and smiled. This time, there were even more metal boxes. Very quickly, Lei Xingfeng cleared them out. There were a total of 180 metal boxes. They were all sealed steel mannequins. After collecting the 180 metal boxes, there were 6 small metal boxes that were 1 meter long and half a meter wide. Jean Dia said happily, "A phone, there's a special metal box here. I don't know what's inside." Lei Xingfeng looked at the small metal box and said, "Open it and take a look." After prying open the small metal box, there were crystals arranged neatly inside. Lei Xingfeng looked at them for a long time, but he couldn't recognize what they were. They were all transparent and colorless hexagonal crystals. They were similar to the Sky Evolution Crystal, but Lei Xingfeng was sure that they weren't the Sky Evolution Crystal. Jean Dia guessed, "These should be for the steel mannequins." Tiger Love said, "I guess so too. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in the same pile. Also, these things should be worth a lot." Xian Feng spoke, "Let's not care about that for now. We'll talk about it after we keep it." Jean Dia said, 360. No, it's 359 steel mannequins. Haha, if we can use these crystals to activate these steel mannequins, we'll definitely make a fortune this time. Lei Xingfeng was shocked. He said, "Wow, 359 steel mannequins. We've really struck it rich. However, seeing how many steel mannequins we encountered before, these shouldn't be much." Chapter 370. Previously, there were hundreds and thousands of steel puppets. If not for the fact that most of the steel puppets were damaged due to the passage of time, Lei Xingfeng would have a hard time entering the city walls. Unless he spent a lot of time to slowly exhaust the steel puppets, it would be impossible for him to enter the city walls. The 3 of them continued to walk downwards. There were still 6 silver puppets in front of them. The 6 silver puppets entered the next level, and Lei Xingfeng and the rest followed. This time it was different. There was light on this level, and there was a metal platform in the middle. For 1 meter tall steel pillars formed a square space, and a wisp of flame mysteriously floated in the middle of the steel pillars. The flame was silver-white, like mercury. It did not look like a flame at all, but Lei Xingfeng only needed a glance to know that it was a flame. However, no one could understand what kind of flame it was. Similarly, no one knew why the flame was floating there. On top of Lei Xingfeng's head, Lei flickered with electric arcs. The closer he got to the flame, the more excited Lei seemed. Tiny bolts of lightning actually struck the steel pillars, making crackling sounds. This made Lei Xingfeng suspicious. He said, "What a strange feeling. It seems like Lei Yin is interested in the flame." Jean Dia said, "That lightning was directed by you?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "That was spontaneous. I did not direct it." As he spoke, he took a few more steps forward. At this time, he was less than 2 meters away from the metal platform in the middle. Suddenly, Lei flew out from Lei Xingfeng's head and floated above the steel pillars. In the blink of an eye, countless bolts of lightning struck the 4 steel pillars. This force was so strong that it melted the steel pillars in an instant. Without the steel pillars' restraint, the flames suddenly shot up and entered Lei Yin. The 3 of them were stunned. Lei Xingfeng was even more surprised. He said, "What does that mean?" Jean Dia said, "I don't understand." Tiger Love said thoughtfully, there should be benefits. Try taking back Lei Yin. Lei Xingfeng hesitated for a moment before retrieving Lei Yin. When Lei Yin entered his body, Lei Xingfeng felt a burst of heat. However, Lei Yin was his origin seal, so he could completely control it. Even if there was one more thing, he could still control it. Jean Dia and Tiger Love looked at Lei Xingfeng nervously. Lei Xingfeng closed his eyes, and after a while, his face lit up with joy. He said, I'm not sure what it is exactly, but it's definitely a good thing. I seem to have gained an additional attribute. Fire attribute. It should be Thunder Fire attribute now. Lei Xingfeng said again, strange, what kind of flame is this? It has such a huge effect. It's unbelievable. Jean Dia and Tiger Love looked at each other. This was too strange. Lei Yin actually gained an additional attribute after absorbing this strange flame. What was this? Lei Xingfeng said, I still need to slowly figure it out. There's not enough time. Jean Dia said, then take it slow. Ask the founder later. Maybe he knows what kind of flame this is. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, yes, we can only ask the founder. I don't think even Master knows. Other than the silver flame, there was nothing else on this floor. The empty area was larger than the previous floor. Tiger Love looked around and said, it's a pity that there are no steel puppet beasts here. Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, how can there be so many good things? This flame, I have a feeling that it's something good. This time we really earn a lot. Hee, it's not much worse than the forbidden area. Jean Dia couldn't help but sigh. A phone, the conditions of secret sect disciples like you are really too good. You can go to all kinds of places to search for treasures, have powerful elders to support you, and control powerful forces. Hee, it's really enviable. Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, it's just good luck, hee. Tiger Love said, don't be jealous. This is innate. If a phone didn't have such strong potential, he wouldn't have been able to enter the secret sect. The innate difference would naturally pull out the difference in levels between cultivators. This was how the world worked. Once good aptitude and potential were discovered, other cultivators would be left in the dust. There was no point in being envious. Lei Xingfeng said, let's continue. Hee, the deeper we go, the more I look forward to it. The three of them went down again. The 6 silver puppet beasts were still in front of them. Xi and Feng and the rest were already very relaxed. Up until now, they hadn't met any real threats. Those half-dead steel mannequins, under the attacks of the silver mannequins, couldn't hold on for long. If they didn't have the help of the silver mannequins, it would take a long time for them to enter. Of course, with their methods, they would be able to enter in the end. In fact, Lei Xingfeng was still a little annoyed. He didn't know if other cultivators had entered this place. Once they entered, this place would be open. The more cultivators that entered, the less benefits Lei Xingfeng and the others would get. Moreover, Lei Xingfeng vaguely felt that the opening of the avocado swamp might have something to do with this world. As for what the connection was, he wasn't sure. Anyway, he only had one thought, and that was to get as many benefits as possible. Once this world was full of cultivators, he probably wouldn't get any benefits. Boom, boom, kacha, kacha. Lei Xingfeng's body swayed slightly. The entire metal tower shook violently. Lei Xingfeng hurriedly said, quick! This kind of shaking was definitely caused by the silver puppet beasts fighting. As for what it was, he didn't know. Perhaps it was the steel puppet beasts, or perhaps it was something else. This time, it was Jean Dia who released the seal. Rays of light shot out in all directions, illuminating the lower level. He couldn't help but curse, Motherf asterisk cur. What the hell is this? The steel spider had 2 gigantic pincers. Just this thing that looked like a giant spider had forced the 6 silver puppet beasts into a panic. They had to dodge the 2 terrifying pincers. The pincers were like a pair of giant metal scissors. Kacha sounds echoed out. If they were caught by the pincers, they would probably be cut in half. This steel spider was simply too big. It had 8 long metal legs and 3 sharp blades at the tip of each leg. Each of the metal legs was as thick as a bucket. Its body was flat, and hidden behind the 8 long metal legs, the 2 front pincers were even more terrifying. Just the length of the pincers alone was 4 meters. The inside of the pincers was flashing with silver light, and it was obvious that it was incomparably sharp. The height of this level was obviously different from the previous one. It was about 12 to 13 meters high. The steel spider's body wasn't that big, but its 8 legs took up a lot of space. Together with the 2 long pincers, it looked even bigger. Compared to humans, the silver mannequin was considered tall and strong. However, compared to the steel spider, it was nothing. What was worse was that the steel spider's 8 legs were like 8 weapons. Once it attacked, its attacks were powerful. The silver mannequin's double-edged axes were all damaged. It could only rely on its lightning-fast speed to dodge the attacks. If it tried to fight the steel spider head-on, it would be at a disadvantage. Lei Xingfeng knew that the situation wasn't good. He raised his hand and released a thick electric current. Immediately, the steel spider trembled violently. The violent electric current froze it and made it unable to move. The 6 silver puppets took this opportunity to attack, but after a few attacks, they retreated. Because they couldn't do anything to the steel spider, the double-edged axes in their hands were all shattered. They couldn't hurt the steel spider, either. All they could do was leave some marks on its legs. After the steel spider trembled for 10 seconds, it immediately attacked Lei Xingfeng. Its huge body turned, and as it stepped on the metal floor, it started to attack. Lei Xingfeng cursed, F***CK. He raised his hand and released another bolt of lightning. Taking advantage of the giant metal spider, Feng suddenly released 2 gold-level mannequins at once. He knew that the silver-level mannequins couldn't win against the giant metal spider, not because of how strong the spider was, but because of how thick its metal was. If they couldn't hurt it, then no matter how many silver-level mannequins there were, it would be useless. However, the 2 gold puppets were completely different. As soon as they appeared, they rushed towards the steel spider. Taking advantage of the paralysis effect of the electric current, the 2 gold puppets chose to rush onto the steel spider's back. This was the most heavily guarded part of the steel spider. Unfortunately, Lei Xingfeng's electric current had made the steel spider tremble, so it couldn't block the gold puppet's charge. Lei Xingfeng shouted, "Let's retreat." The 3 of them quickly retreated into the tunnel. The 6 silver puppets also retreated. Since they couldn't hurt the steel spider, they didn't want to stay in the same place. They would be restricted and affect the gold puppet's performance. Lei Xingfeng hid at the entrance of the tunnel and secretly peeked inside. The gold-gray doll's body glowed with a golden light, and it attacked the back of the metal spider. Boom! 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 The metal spider spun around on the ground, trying to shake off the gold-gray doll on its back. There were sounds of banging, rumbling footsteps, and clanging sounds of collisions. It was a complete mess inside. Jean Dia asked, "How is it?" Lei Xingfeng said, "This steel spider is too strong. It's as if it's covered in heavy metal armor. It's too strong. If we can't break its defense, there's nothing we can do." Tiger Love said, "It's a gold puppet. It should be able to take care of it." He felt that the gold puppets were invincible. Lei Xingfeng said, "I don't know. The 2 gold puppets are attacking the steel spider's back. As long as we can break it, it'll be fine." "I'll wait. They don't have any weapons." Although the gold puppets were strong, they didn't have any weapons. Lei Xingfeng wasn't optimistic about the gold puppets' attacks. He said, "No, we have to send weapons up." As he spoke, Feng took out 2 short, large axes from his hidden lens space. They were obtained from the previous floor. Even he found it difficult to hold these large single-edged axes. He waved his hand and called over 2 silver-level mannequins, handing them 2 short axes. "Throw them onto the back of the large spider." Jean Dia tried to lift them and couldn't help but click his tongue. So heavy. He handed the axes to the silver puppets. He completely gave up on throwing them. Even if he was a 9th ring sage, he couldn't lift such heavy metal objects. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.